with the presidency over a possible deadline extension.
I think we have said before, and it is clear that the Commission still has a lot of work to do.
The Commission resumes this morning. Thabiso Koba, Eyewitness News.
The city of Ekurhuleni has formally requested the public protector to conduct an independent investigation into an alleged irregular tender awarded to the wife of suspected crime boss Vusmuzi Matlaala. Last week, the Matlanga Commission of Inquiry heard startling allegations that Tsakane Matlaala defrauded the city of about 3.7 million rand. Her company, Buena Vista Learning Academy, was awarded a tender 3 years ago to provide municipal employees with specialized and professional skills development training. But it's alleged the company was not registered as an accredited skills provider and had been registered as a Shisanyama just days before submitting its bid for the contract. City of Ekurhuleni spokesperson Pagamile Mbengashe says the allegations presented before the commission are deeply concerning.
The allegations relate to accreditation issues, company registration discrepancies, and the disbursement of approximately 3.4 million rand in CETA funding. An internal audit review has also been initiated by the city manager. The city will fully cooperate with the Matlanga Commission, and decisive action will be taken should wrongdoing be confirmed.
Gold is trading at $5,356.46 an ounce. The rand is at 16.07 to the dollar, 21.59 to the pound, 18.93 to the euro. Brent crude oil is at $77.60 a barrel.
And in the traffic, we've got a major accident seen along the N3 North. It happened right near Modderfontein Road. It is causing heavy traffic volumes, and there's still queuing traffic along the N1 South in the city of Tshwane between Sefako Makgatho exit and the Flying Saucer turnoff.
A partly cloudy day in store for Gauteng with isolated showers. The temperatures will peak at highs between 24 and 27 degrees. The top story in EWN this hour: Israeli strikes on Lebanon have killed at least 31 people and wounded 149 this morning.
EWN, in touch, in tune and independent. For the latest, visit ewn.co.za or download the EWN app.
You're with Clement Manyathela
On 702.
Let's Walk the Talk. Streaming on the Prime Media Plus app.
DSTV channel 856.
92.7 and 106 FM.
7 minutes after 9 o'clock. Dumelang, happy Monday. Welcome to the Clement Manyathela Show. It's wonderful to have you with us here on 702. I hope you had a wonderful weekend. Oh wait, how could it not have been a wonderful weekend when we witnessed one of the greatest derby wins, or the greatest derby defeats, depending on who you are with. We have to take a moment to congratulate the mighty Pirates, but we must also take a moment to mourn with our fellow friends from Kaizer Chiefs who probably witnessed the worst Amakhosi derby performance ever. I mean, I saw that there's now pressure on Cedric Kaze because apparently those in charge at Kaizer Chiefs want to wield the axe. This was the heaviest derby loss in a quarter of a century. And Chiefs supporters, what do you think of Cedric? Do you think it's fair to go after him What should happen to him? And how do you feel about that performance on Saturday? Pirate supporters, you got on top of that Betway Premiership standings. How does that feel like after that brilliant performance? Here's how I feel. How do you feel? 011-883-0702. WhatsApp's on 072-702-1702. Here's a question. What do you anticipate will happen in the Middle East following the start of Operation Epic Fury in Iran? I'm asking this question because it appears what Israel and America were banking on is not necessarily taking shape. So when America and Israel decided to bomb Iran this weekend, the mission was clear. America wanted to, according to Trump, destroy Iran's missiles and prevent Iran from producing a nuclear weapon, which is strange because didn't the U.S. President claim that Iran's nuclear capabilities were completely obliterated during the previous operation a couple of months ago when they bombed Iran? That's what Donald Trump claimed, even when his own officials said we're still waiting for a report that shows us the extent of the damage. But the president of the U.S. claimed, no, all their capabilities are completely obliterated. So if really the capabilities were obliterated, why are you bombing them now? And your justification is that we want to destroy their capabilities. That doesn't make sense to me. If you have obliterated their nuclear capabilities, what's there to destroy now? The mission, though, was clear this time around. They wanted regime change. They want to destroy not only this infrastructure, but Israel wanted to take out the supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, which they have done so successfully. But both America and Israel were hoping that their actions will create conditions for regime change. But have they? Have they actually created those conditions? Because the story that's coming out of Iran is a little different to what they probably were hoping for. And yes, there were some jubilations on the streets of Iran after the supreme leader was killed, but there was also mourning in other parts of the country where people were mourning the supreme leader. And some civilians were talking about how, yes, we can be angry at our government, but we can also equally be angry at another country that comes and attacks our country like the way the US and Israel have. Listen to what Donald Trump said before or even just after the first missiles were fired by America and Israel. This is what his message was to the Iranian people.
Finally, to the great, proud people of Iran, I say tonight that the hour of your freedom is at hand. Stay sheltered. Don't leave your home. It's very dangerous outside. Bombs will be dropping everywhere. When we are finished, take over your government. It will be yours to take. This will be probably your only chance for generations.
That's it. That's what they were hoping for. That as soon as they take out the supreme leader, which, by the way, is Israel that took out the supreme leader. I think America was very clear in that its operation here, its operations tactics are very clear. They want to destroy Iran's nuclear infrastructure. But the leaders of Iran were taken out by Israel. And someone was asking, can you just explain in what world is it justified to kill a head of a government? But then again, in what world can you try and find justifications of all sorts to explain why you are not following international law. That's the world we're living in, right? Donald Trump, a couple of hours ago, addressed the nation again. This time around, there are U.S. soldiers that have been killed. How does he even explain this to his base? Because he was known as the president who promised no new wars. Now he has to explain the deaths of soldiers to his base and justify what immediate threat Iran was posing to America, because there was none, even according to the U.S. government officials. A couple of hours ago, he addressed the nation and he explained why they went in, but more so that America is going to avenge the deaths of the soldiers that have been killed.
Over the past 36 hours, the United States and its partners have launched Operation Epic Fury, one of the largest, most complex, most overwhelming military offensives the world has ever seen. Iran's formerly supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, is dead. As one nation, we grieve for the true American patriots who have made the ultimate sacrifice for our nation, even as we continue the righteous mission for which they gave their lives. We pray for the full recovery of the wounded and send our immense love and eternal gratitude to the families of the fallen. And sadly, there will likely be more. Before it ends, that's the way it is. Likely be more, but we'll do everything possible where that won't be the case.
He calls it a righteous mission, and he warns the American people that there are likely to be more soldiers that are going to be killed, which is, excuse me, which sort of indicates to you that this may dramatically escalate, because Iran says we want to avenge the death and the murder, the assassination of our supreme leader. America says we want to avenge the killing of our soldiers. So where is this going to lead to? There are now threats of a regional wide war because Iran has attacked American military bases in Qatar, in the UAE, and those countries are not happy. They threaten to retaliate. EWN is reporting this morning that Iran's proxies like Hezbollah have now attacked Israel. So the world is responding. And can I just say, I'm glad that our president was brave enough, President Cyril Ramaphosa, to condemn international law violations in his statement yesterday. He made it very clear that Article 51 of the United Nations Charter provides for self-defense only when a state has been subjected to an armed invasion. Anticipatory self-defense is not permitted under international law, and self-defense cannot be based on assumption or anticipation. Isn't that the reason Israel gave this weekend for targeting Iran? They said, this is a preemptive strike. That's what they said. They called it a preemptive strike. But then again, who cares about international law in this war? I mean, the might is right? That's like the era where we are. The UK Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, has explained how his country will be assisting America.
The only way to stop the threat is to destroy the missiles at source, in their storage depots, or the launchers which are used to fire the missiles. The United States has requested permission to use British bases for that specific and limited defensive purpose. We have taken the decision to accept this request to prevent Iran firing missiles across the region, killing innocent civilians, putting British lives at risk, and hitting countries that have not been involved. The basis of our decision is the collective self-defense of long-standing friends and allies and protecting British lives. That is in accordance with international law, and we are publishing a summary of our legal advice.
Yeah, it's fascinating how the UK then reads what international law principles guarantee. And I wonder if they think, in this case, Article 51 of the United Nations Charter is applicable. And what I'm interested to see is how the US is going to show appreciation to the UK, because they are now saying, okay, we're going to use our bases to support them, to allow them to, fire missiles from there. I'm not sure what the actual arrangement is, but they're saying you can use our bases. Which took me back a couple of months ago, late last year, remember when U.S. President Donald Trump said during an interview, we never needed them, referring to the soldiers from the UK and other NATO-allied countries. Do you remember that? The UK Prime Minister was upset about that. Some politicians, mostly in the UK, were saying, how dare you? After 9/11, there are NATO soldiers who went with you to Afghanistan. Some of them have lost their lives. Some of them have been injured. And you want to say that, oh, they were not involved in the front lines. They were like right at the back. We didn't really need them. Do you need them this time around? Do you need the British Army? And I wonder if the US President will actually show appreciation for that. At 10 o'clock, we are going to be live in Iran for the latest, since this Operation Epic Fury started. With Israel and America bombing Iran and the country retaliating, we have someone on the ground who will tell us what's currently going on and how the administration there continues to react. And then at 10:30, we're going to start a new series today, which looks at the role of multinational organizations. We have a number of them, whether it's the United Nations, the World Trade Organization, the World Bank Organization, the World Health Organization, you name it. There are quite a few of them. And what I want to do is bring in people who can explain what they are, these multinational organizations, what their mandate is, and what's been the impact of their formations. I mean, today, we're going to start by looking at the United Nations. And I know you and I have debated this a number of times. It actually turned 80 years old last year. Can you believe it? And guess who were some of the founding fathers of the United Nations? It was America. The same country that's doing exactly what the United Nations after World War II was established to prevent. So we'll find out about the mandate and the successes and failures of the United Nations at 10:30. 11 o'clock, we do our Family Matters feature, and today we're discussing long-distance parenting. How do you navigate parenthood from afar? That's the show coming up over the next 3 hours.
Clement Manyathela, streaming on the Prime Media Plus app.
DSTV channel 856,
92.7
and 106 FM.
Morning, Clement. Yeah, ne. Hi, Bo. Hi, Clement. We saw it. So please don't rub it in. It's Dahlia from Blackburn. Thank you, Clement. Yeah, you even played the song, ne? Thank you, Clement. Bye.
Good morning, Clement. Ned is here. Kaizer Chiefs fan. I mean, after you just said you're gonna mourn with us, you went and played that song. I think that was just a cup full of salt in a wound on a Monday. But yeah, that was terrible from Kaizer Chiefs. I expected that we were gonna lose, judging from how good Pirates is playing, but I did not foresee the trapping that happened. But yeah, lick our wounds and carry on. What can we do, eh?
Your voice,
Your station.
your open line
Walk the talk with Clement Manyathela.
on 702.
Good morning, Clement Manyathela and your 702 team. This is Elton Gordon from Pinetown out in eThekwini, KZN. Mr. Manyathela, I just want to find out, what has the school kids got to do with the war? Because there were the reports that there were school kids, I think particularly girls, who died as a result of the attack on Iran. Isn't it supposed to be only military bases that are attacked and vice versa? What have the school kids got to do with this war? It's so disappointing, this type of bullish bullying behavior. Thank you for a great show, guys.
I'm sorry, but why are you not talking about the 35,000 people who have been killed because the government didn't appreciate them protesting the freedom and rights of women in Iran? Like, why are we not talking about this? Women are literally slaves. They're being killed for not wearing their hijabs properly in Iran. And yet all we can talk about is these attacks with Trump. Let's be more irate about all those people who are dying because of that leader who killed them in Iran.
Yeah, but why are we then be consistent in that? If you so care about your moral position, then be consistent about it. Do you think Iran is the only country where Sharia law is followed? Do you think Iran is the only country where there continues to be persecution of minority groups? And you may see it as persecution of those minority groups. And I'm now talking about the rules that often govern girls going to this one school, men going to this one school. Do you think Iran is the only country that does that? It is not. Is Iran the only country where, when there are protests, there are civilians that die? It is not. I'm calling on us to be consistent in how we show our outrage at civilians. If we really care about the Iranians here, how does it help them that America comes in and supports Israel when there is no immediate existential threat? Why are you not asking that question as well? Sure, let's talk about the Iranians, civilians, who are literally just the victims of this entire thing here. But why are we not questioning whether there is an existential, immediate threat on America? There isn't. The U.S. officials themselves have said that's not the case. The organization that often checks countries and how they're doing in terms of nuclear weapons has said before, is it the IA? I'll find that organization for you. I'm forgetting the what they call it. But they've come out and they said, no, there isn't a nuclear weapon. The IAEA, that's what I was looking for. They said there's no conclusive, credible evidence of a nuclear weapon. So why are you going in then? Is it okay for Israel to go kill the Saudi prince? They've killed the supreme leader there. So if there are people in Saudi Arabia that have protested and have claimed that, oh, we don't agree with these laws, we want a country where we are just free, does it have a right to just go kill a leader of a government in another country? How do you justify that on the law, international law? Eunice, you're calling us from Killarney. Good morning.
Yeah, hi there, Clement. Clement, first thing regarding this story with Iran and U.S. and Israel. In 2011, it was the same Donald Trump who said that Obama is pushing for a war with Iran. And here, who goes and makes war with Iran? That's one. The second point is, Clement, in my opinion, these two war criminals, Trump and Netanyahu, have been, Netanyahu made 6 trips to Israel to the United States in the last year. And this thing was pre-planned. Up to last week, Thursday, Trump himself said the negotiations are going well. Now, the question is, no one here talks. Trump is more worried about the 3 soldiers, the servicemen who have been killed, and he wants to avenge their deaths. There was a criminal act committed here, Clement, where a missile was sent into a girls' school in Minab. Up to 165 girls aged between 7 and 12 were slaughtered there. Is that not a war crime? So is one life cheaper than the others there? I'm baffled here. And as far as you cannot justify this thing in any way, I mean, this bloodthirsty Netanyahu, what he has done in the Gaza Strip, if that is not bad enough, and yet we have people singing his praises, is continuing here. So, Clement, the question I'm asking is, up to 40 leaders have been slaughtered here, including the ex-president of Iran, Ahmadinejad. The point I'm trying to say is now, if we juxtapose that is it then not okay for the Iranians then to target Israeli leadership anywhere in the world or U.S. leadership anywhere in the world? We're heading for a world war.
Imagine what that would look like, Eunice. Imagine if Iran targeted Benjamin Netanyahu. Imagine if they took him out tomorrow. That would be completely unacceptable in the eyes of the West. They would be coming out.
Many people are still asking why is it that the other Arab Gulf states, Iran is attacking them. If you take the question of Bahrain, for example, the building that was targeted there was a CIA command center, and that is why it was targeted. And besides the bases that are there, and those that are in Dubai that are being targeted are all Trump's interests there. All the hotels there are Trump's interests. So the Iranians are targeting Trump's interests in these areas. And
in fact, my understanding is that they were targeting the military bases because, in fact, Qatar, for instance, hosts one of the biggest U.S. military bases. The UAE, there are some military bases there. It's just that in the process of intercepting some of those missiles, the debris then fell on some of the residential buildings. Eunice, that's what my understanding has been from what I've observed so far. But thanks for your call in Kilani. Lydia, you're in Pretoria. What are your thoughts?
Good morning, Clement. I just feel like we've gone back with some almost 20 years. Do you remember when Iraq was attacked?
Yeah. What's that French proverb? The more things...
Deja vu. Deja vu.
Yeah, the more things change, the more they remain the same.
Oh, yes, absolutely. So I think they're still looking for weapons of mass destruction. I've not heard them ever seeing them. Could it perhaps be that there were none? The Iraqis lost their country. They lost their home. It was destroyed. Baghdad was destroyed. History was destroyed. And at that time, the Americans said they want to protect the Iraqis. Did they protect them? Are they trying to protect the Iranians? Or is it just a method of bringing about a regime change?
And of bringing about destruction in these countries. Because which of the countries where America intervened militarily today are successful? I mean, I was taking you guys through a series over the last couple of weeks since we came back and we started the show this year. Took you to different countries, Libya, Iraq, Syria, several other countries where America actually also, even in some instances, sent soldiers on the ground. All that's left is destruction. So you want to talk about a post-war plan? There's never a plan. There's destruction, there's hopes for regime change, and in some instances where they intervened militarily, there was regime change. But there was total, utter destruction. That did not work for the civilians of those countries. And Trump now says, go, rise up. This is your only chance. That's his message to the Iranian people. But what support are you even giving them? When the administration, that government of Iran responds to the dissidents or the protesters, what support are you providing as Donald Trump? Or what? Your job is done? As long as the supreme leader is out and some of the senior officials, they must now rise up. There must be regime change, but you've got nothing to do with what happens afterwards. No support whatsoever that is provided. So once again, the civilians are going to be on their own. It's 9:32. More of your calls and WhatsApps after the latest Eyewitness News headlines. Good morning.
Thanks, Clement. Good morning. Iran's security chief says Tehran is unwilling to negotiate with the U.S. as it strikes the country for a third day. The conflict is spreading, with Israel trading fire with Hezbollah in Lebanon and a British military base in Cyprus hit by a suspected drone. Israeli strikes on Lebanon have killed at least 31 people and wounded 149 this morning. The city of Ekurhuleni has formally requested the public protector to conduct an independent investigation into an alleged irregular tender awarded to the wife of suspected crime boss Vusmuzi Kat Matlala. Last week, the Matlala Commission of Inquiry heard startling allegations that Tsakane Matlala defrauded the city of about 3.7 million rand. Her company, Buena Vista Learning Academy, was awarded a tender 3 years ago to provide municipal employees with specialized and professional skills development training. And the Limpopo Education Department has confirmed that schools in the Capricorn district will open today amid a scholar transport saga. Posts have been circulating on social media claiming there will be no teaching and learning after non-compliant scholar transport vehicles were impounded. Those are the headlines. This EWN and more at 10 or as it happens.
EWN Traffic.
Let's start off in the city of Tshwane with heavy traffic volumes on the N1 South. This is between the Priv Plus interchange and Linwood Road due to a major accident scene. There's also queuing traffic on the northerly direction of this route between the Flying Saucer turn off and Rigel Avenue. This is due to an accident scene as well as roadworks taking place along this route. If you want to avoid the backlog on the N1 in the city of Tshwane, please use the N14 South into areas like the Centurion area as well as Midrand. If you're traveling on the N1 North heading towards Randburg, we've got heavy traffic volumes. This is due to an accident right after 14th Avenue. Heavy traffic volumes towards Bayers Nodia Drive. There's also queuing traffic on the M1 both directions right at the Kilani Bends. Do expect about a 15-minute hold up there. And then heading towards Benoni, we've got delays on the N12 East. An accident reported there. It's right near Atlas Road. It's causing massive queues. Please be on the lookout and try to avoid. And also try to avoid the backlog on the N3 North. This is between Fort Stricker Road along the N12 and Van Buren Road. This is due to peak time delays as well as the wet weather conditions this morning. I'll have more updates coming up. Stay tuned.
There's more EWN on air, online, and on the EWN app.
Africa Milani.
Weekday mornings,
4 to 6.
The United States, Bahrain, Jordan, Kuwait, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates issuing a joint statement saying that Islamic Republic's actions represent a dangerous escalation that violates the sovereignty of multiple states and threatens regional stability, saying that the targeting of civilians and of countries not engaged in hostilities is reckless and destabilizing behavior. Why are the other countries in the region seemingly the target of Iran?
Africa Milani.
4 to 6 on 702.
Some ingredients are simple until they're not. This week, the humble onion becomes the hero in the pressure cooker kitchen of MasterChef South Africa. The onion family is bold, it's sharp and it's sweet, but also unforgiving, and it can make you cry. Expect a challenge that separates the good cooks from the great ones, because when you strip everything back, flavor has to stand on its own. MasterChef South Africa Season 6 continues this Sunday at 6 p.m. only on ETV.
Clientele is here to safeguard you and your family with compassion because life happens. Be part of a family that truly cares. Our funeral dignity plans have helped South Africans bury their loved ones with dignity for more than 30 years. Let us help you create a meaningful tribute that honors your life and those of your loved ones. We pay out within 24 hours and you will get double accident cover with a clientele funeral plan. Our plans are affordable. Pick the option that suits your needs. It's easy to apply. No medical examinations and no paperwork. SMS funeral to 31586. That's 31586. Clientele Life is an authorized FSP and licensed life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
You hear that? That's the sound of business execution finally visible. No more chasing people and reports. No more disconnected systems. No more guessing if our business is performing or not. iStratGo connects strategy, people, performance, and day-to-day work into one clear software platform, so leaders can see what's working, what's not, and where to focus. Because when execution is visible, everything runs better. Book a demo on iStratGo.com. iStratgo.com.
702 and the Discount Foundation are shining the spotlight on the health matters you want to know more about. Here's what we explored this month.
We had the benefits of being introduced to Hearts of Hope and do a Christmas party with the children. These kids don't come from pleasant environments and they're not taken away because everything's okay. So they need to be treated gently and kindly and sometimes maybe a little bit firmly. And I think they get the balance so incredibly right. They're also one of our beneficiaries on our food garden. I get pictures of what's been cooked for the food from the nutritional produce we've provided. We don't have to check that things are being done properly.
In Conversation on Afternoon Drive with John Perlman. Brought to you by the Discount Foundation, caring for the community on 702.
Your voice,
Your station.
Your open line.
Walk the talk with Clement Manyathela.
On 702.
22 minutes before 10 o'clock. Let's continue with the 702 open line. We've been reflecting on the incredible weekend of wins. A weekend definitely of wins for Pirates. On YouTube, Tem says on YouTube, comments there and says, "Hi Clement, I believe that God created the world in 6 days and rested on the seventh day, and on the eighth day he created Orlando Pirates. This joy is biblical. How else do we explain this undeserved joy?" I think we do deserve this joy, Tem. Thank you for your comment there on YouTube. We also have someone else, Situmo, on the YouTube page, says, "Hey Clement, Iran has the right to defend itself by all means necessary with all the might that is possible." AB, you are calling us from Durban in KwaZulu-Natal. What are your thoughts? Hi.
Hi, Clement.
Sure.
You know, Clement, suddenly everyone in the West is concerned about the suffering of the Iranian people. And very conveniently, no mention is made of the extremely crippling sanctions imposed on Iran since 1979, when the tyrant, the American puppet, the Shah, was booted out. The sanctions have absolutely decimated a country rich in oil and gas to the extent that people are finding it extremely difficult to put food on the table. Why didn't these so-called liberals and humanitarians fight for the sanctions to be lifted and end the suffering? Israel won't allow it and use the excuse that Iran was developing a nuclear bomb. You know, Clement, the hypocrisy really stinks.
Yeah, look, IB, it's wild when you think. That's why the other caller spoke about the weapons of mass destruction. Whatever happened to those? You just don't intervene militarily in a sovereign state unless that decision is grounded by facts. And that's what concerns me. One, what is the legality and the constitutionality of what Donald Trump has done? Because there was no approval from Congress. So that's still up in the air. That's what's being debated in America. But then he's done this before, even with what happened in Venezuela. So, I mean, what's likely to happen, right? Does the U.S. have information that the supreme leaders in Iran actually ordered weaponization? This is a question that was asked to the American officials, and they always said, no, that is irrelevant. Really? I mean, if the U.S. intelligence has not indicated that Iran has made a decision to build a nuclear weapon, then what do you ground the attack on? That doesn't make sense. Remember when we heard from Tulsi Gabbard, who is the U.S.'s intelligence director? I don't know if she still holds that position. But sometime last year, she said it quite clearly that the U.S. has no evidence that Iran is building a weapon. That's the U.S.'s intelligence director. And then she came out, then after when Trump disagreed with her, she came out and said, no, the media misquoted her. But that was because the Trump administration clearly had a different view to hers. She was probably worried about her future. But it was clear. I even played you that clip sometime last year when Operation Midnight, what was that operation? The last year's operation started. That 12-day war. I played you a clip of Tulsi Gabbard. Maybe I'll find that again to play it for you. So what did America rely on, even this time around, to make the decision to attack Iran? It's the same America that claimed there were weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. 20 years later, did they ever find those weapons of mass destruction? No. Even the head of International Atomic Energy Agency, Rafael Mariano Grossi, his team is the one that actually monitors nuclear sites, even in Iran. And remember, having nuclear facilities is not prohibited. So you can have capability. The problem is when you weaponize it. And he himself has said before that they don't have information that Iran planned to weaponize nuclear facilities. So even the IAEA said there's no conclusive, credible evidence of a nuclear weapon. And look, I do think there are legitimate concerns, of course, about Iran's nuclear activity. It's recently expanded rapidly. I think 60% enrichment, if I'm not mistaken. And the question is, why did they rapidly escalate? Because 60% is far beyond what you need for peaceful nuclear energy. There was an international concern about this. And as I said, enriching uranium is not forbidden, but when you are the only country in the world that's enriching to 60% and continues to do so, it is a legitimate concern. The connotation is, when there is resolution against them or an attack or something they don't like, then they respond by enriching more. And that dynamic is just not healthy. But then the Trump administration is also the one that walked away from a deal that was signed by the Obama administration back in 2018. They decided to pull out of that deal. And now some people are saying Ukraine gave up its nukes, and what happened to them? They got invaded by Russia. Saddam Hussein gives up his nukes, and then what happens? Gets invaded and executed. Gaddafi gave up chemical weapons. What happens? Got invaded. So you really think Iran is going to give up its nuclear programs given these constant attacks? More of your WhatsApps on 072 702 1702.
Morning, Clement, and morning, 72. In this whole thing, I think I find it bizarre whenever United States topples a government, it calls it a regime, while others whom they perceive civilize its administration. It really gets to me on that part. And what really gets to me more is that they don't want people to retaliate. But they've been shooting Iran for how long this time? Pretoria.
Morning, Clement. Once again, it's so sad that the whole world keeps blaming Israel for everything. Call it what you want. Look at what the regime has done to their own people. We had people running around marching Free Palestine because it took Israel 2 years to kill 50,000, call it, Palestinians. Let's call it that. In 1 month or 2 months, Iran has killed 40,000 of their own people. Where are the marches? Everyone's quiet about it. So it's okay for them to genocide their own people, protesting. 81% of the people in Palestine are happy that this regime is ending. But here we are complaining. Why are we mad when the people are happy? What is actually going on? What is with this anti-Semitism? It's always about Israel. It's not about Israel. My sister is stuck in Dubai now because the Iranian regime is bombing the airport in Dubai. Where's the outrage about that? That's not normal. These people are not normal, and we got to call a spade a spade. America needs to finish the job.
Yeah, look, I laugh there because what you're saying is actually quite hilarious. It's ridiculous. What is it with anti-Semitism? Are we back there? Come on. Here's the thing, what I struggle with. There are people who have blind loyalty. So you love Israel so much that they can never do anything wrong. Or you love Iran so much that they can never do anything wrong. And that's often the problem I had with the lack of consistency. Two things can exist at the same time. You can be concerned about the government in Iran. Or like that listener who called in and said women are persecuted, or, girls only go to girls' schools, boys' schools. There's a specific law that that country follows. And you can be outraged at that. Or you can be outraged at how Iran responds to protesters, like how Tanzania responded to protesters, or other countries on this continent, or in many other countries around the world. You can be concerned about that. But you can also be concerned about countries that violate international law. And I find that we failed to recognize that, or at least be consistent in that. And I think that to me demonstrates that some people just have blind loyalty. Why can you not, one, condemn Iran, as you do, but also be able to condemn America and Israel, unless you're able to demonstrate what laws of war they have followed here, unless you're able to demonstrate how Article 51 of the United Nations Charter is applicable to them, that justifies their actions. And that's where we find ourselves. It's either you are for or you are against. And I don't think that's really helps us move forward. What helps us at least get a broader understanding, more rationality of what's going on is, what do you think is happening there from the part of the Iranians? What do you think is happening from the part of Israel and America? What do you think they're doing right? What do you think they're doing wrong? Because it's okay for two things to exist at the same time. Sandy, you are in Johannesburg. What are your thoughts?
Yes, my thoughts are, I've been watching this closely over the last two days. It's absolute travesty. How can you go into a country, bomb them indiscriminately, making claims to do that to help the people? My comparison is, how about they do that in some of the African countries where there are starving children, people battling and fighting amongst themselves and really, really having a hard life. But, no, the West doesn't need to go there because there's nothing there to actually gain from perhaps going in and bombing the hell out of perhaps Somalia or one of those places where there really is hunger, terrible, terrible, desperate people. Yes, Iranian people might have had a bad end of the straw because they're now getting they've got a government that's very strong. Lots of countries have similar. In South Africa, some people don't like what's going on here.
I mean, there's a genocide against white people here, apparently. So,
yes.
What?
And then they go flying over. They go flying over to the US. I believe they can hardly get a meal and put a job together. But I won't go there. No. Yes, we all have issues in the country we live in. In my feeling at the moment, we've come out of, in our country, huge types of upheavals. We're dealing with it. We have terrible writing sometimes. But I think it would be ghastly to expect someone else to come and bomb the devil out of everyone and shoot them. And when there are occasions when that happens, rightfully so, we complain and we bring it to the attention through news media like you guys. No. Netanyahu's got his own agenda. I'm sorry. He's got to kick that can down the road for quite a while still for himself. But that's another subject. And as for Trump, he's also only got a short time now to do what he wants to do for these peace, in inverted commas, Nobel Prize that he wants.
Yeah. Is it only about the Nobel Prize, Sandy?
I wish it was. Clement.
Yeah.
But you know what? It's so much more serious. It really, really is. If you think economically what this is doing to the region, and not economically what it's doing to the oil price, and not to mention the civilians caught up in this, and you can see the shock on the face of Keir Starmer. I mean, he looked visibly like a bear caught in the headlights when he had to give a speech to try and explain. Well, we're there to help. You know, we're just helping in case. I think he's terrified between you now.
I think so too. I agree with you, Sandy. In fact, I just think, he's trying to appease Trump, but the same Trump actually spit on the faces of British soldiers when he claimed that, we never needed them. We never needed the NATO soldiers. They were not even on the front lines. They were not fighting in the front lines. Are you kidding me? So many of them have died. Soldiers from the NATO alliance helping the U.S. after 9/11. Some soldiers I watched an interview on Piers Morgan's show where in fact it was his brother, Piers Morgan's brother, a former soldier who served for the British Army during the time when America went to Afghanistan and they needed assistance. He was one of the soldiers there, and he explained, we were on the front lines. We lost our fellow soldiers. And to hear the president of the U.S. say we were never needed and we were at the back, we were not really fighting in the front lines, it's devastating. It was for them. But here's the U.S. again, rushing to assist. Right?
Spinners on Get Prize Drops gives you the chance to win a share of an epic 2.5 million rand in cash and tech gadgets. Enjoy a spinning spectacular and unwrap exciting wonders where fortunes fall from the sky and you could claim amazing prizes with every round. Simply bet 2 rand or more on selected pragmatic play slots Mondays, Tuesdays and Thursdays and enjoy sweet success. Hollywood Bets. It's more fun to spin with us.
T's and C's apply. Hollywood Sportsbook is a licensed betting operator. No persons under the age of 18 years are permitted to gamble. Winners know when to stop. South African Responsible Gambling Foundation toll-free counselling line 0800 006 008 or WhatsApp help to 076 675 0710.
Corporates That Care promotes and encourages corporate leaders and all citizens to walk the talk for a better South Africa. Catch Corporates That Care this Wednesday at 10 to 9 featuring Mahindra. Their CEO Rajesh Gupta will be in conversation with Bongani Bingwa. Join us every Wednesday as we highlight the efforts of companies and brands dedicated to building our country. Corporates That Care is a Prime Media Cares initiative with 702 and Prime Media out there. 702, let's walk the talk and make a difference together.
At Chamberlain's, there's something for everyone. From building supplies for the home renovators to garden essentials for the homemakers. From power tools for the DIY doers to painting supplies for the patio Picassos. We even have coffee for the slightly sleepy and snacks for the young ones. And for the ones who can never quite find what they're looking for, we have you covered too. With our promise to find and source whatever you need. Chamberlain's, famous for hardware since 1903.
Your voice. Your station. Your open line. Walk the talk with Clement Manyathela on 702.
Someone asked on Twitter, Clement, does Israel actually have nuclear weapons? Well, we actually can't say so. We don't know. The IAEA, which is basically responsible for checking countries and monitoring their nuclear weapons, they can't get into Israel. They're not allowed. Israel is not allowing them to come and monitor and check if they do, in fact, have nuclear weapons. Because they're the ones that monitor nuclear sites. We don't know. And they've taken a position as Israel that they're not going to respond to that question. Like if you check some of their politicians, they never really get into it. They'll never really tell you because that's the ambiguous position that they've taken, I think, as an administration. But they're not allowed. How is that okay? Even Iran has allowed the IAEA to come in. Why can't Israel allow them to do the same thing? And the world is okay with that. More of your WhatsApps.
Hi, morning Clement and 702 lenders. So I just want to understand something very simple here. An institution like the United Nations, why does it exist? What is the sole purpose of the United Nations? As far as I know, they are supposed to protect world peace. When something like this is happening, what is the UN saying? What is the UN doing? Do they have any actual powers to stop this from happening? Because it was Iran, it was Iraq at some point, it's Russia now. Who's next? Like, what is the sole purpose of the United Nations? Thank you.
Clement, the importance of the United Kingdom allowing the US to use their bases cannot be overstated. The difference is where the B-2 bombers can fly from, and the B-2 bombers can carry much larger payloads than most other bombers. And they've been flying something like 30 to 36-hour missions, flying from the United States, refueling mid-air to get to the Middle East. And now they will have a much, much shorter flight trip and be able to do a lot more trips with less hassle.
Thank you for that context. And I wonder if America will be appreciative of that. Donald, you are in Bramley. Good morning.
Hi, Donald. Hi, Clement. I'm just confused, right? As a Christian now, I'm beginning even to doubt my Christianity because I know as far as I am a Christian, it's based on Israel history and all this kind of thing. So I'm really struggling as a Christian to understand my Christianity and the genesis of my Christianity, you know. And the next and the last thing, Clement, is U.S. has sailed all the way from U.S. and to bomb and attack Iran. Why is U.S. not being able to develop or maybe have the same competition to development of military programs? Why is it attacking Iran for Iran to develop its military programs and stuff like that? Why is it not doing the same to Russia? Why is it not attacking Russia for Russia invading Iran? Why is it not doing the same to North Korea? Things like that.
Yeah.
Why is U.S. behaving this way?
Yeah, Donald, can I recommend something for you to watch?
Please.
Seeing that you said you're a Christian. There's an interview that I watched which was epic between Tucker Carlson. He is an American podcaster, and he did an interview with a U.S. ambassador to Israel. His name is Mike Huckabee. And during that interview, you'll see that Tucker Carlson, who is a Christian himself and is a supporter of Donald Trump, actually asks the U.S. ambassador to Israel, okay, if you as Christians, as we as Christians, that's what he said, we invoke Genesis 15 to argue that God promised the Jewish people land extending from the Nile to the Euphrates, why then do we only talk about Israel as that small portion? Because according to Genesis 15, that would be larger parts of the Middle East, that must be a home, for instance, to Jewish people. And he couldn't really respond to that. In fact, his response was, well, if Israel wanted the whole part or larger parts of the Middle East, they can just go take it. So as we speak right now, the U.S. ambassador says, based on how they read the Bible, if the Israel woke up tomorrow and decided, actually, we want to extend to the east or west, or let's take Qatar, let's take the UAE, let's take Iran as well, they would be justified to do so based on Genesis 15. So I think you'll enjoy that interview as a fellow Christian, because Tucker Carlson is a Christian and has spoken about, has just challenged the U.S. ambassador to Israel on the justification. And Genesis 15 being the place where most people argue when they talk about what God promised the Jewish people. I think that will be an interesting conversation to watch. Tucker Carlson, if you just Google Tucker Carlson and U.S. ambassador, that should pop up. You can watch it on YouTube. It's a minute before 10.
Need a seat? Try 7 or 5. It's your call. Want a sunroof? Make it a panoramic. Gotta have power? How does award-winning 138 kilowatt sound? The Changan CS75 Pro is big enough for the kids, smart enough for your playlist, and stylish enough for your Friday night too. Why settle when you can have it all without compromise? The Changan CS75 Pro. Drive tomorrow's SUV today. Visit changanmotors.co.za for more.
Changan, driven to evolve.
To live wealthier, you need to be able to grow your assets. At Standard Bank Private, you get a team of internationally acclaimed financial experts to advise you on local and global investment strategies. Plus, being with a leader in home loans, you can start expanding your property portfolio. So, come live wealthier with Africa's best private bank. Apply online at standardbank.co.za. Standard Bank is an authorized FSP and registered credit provider. T's and C's apply. This is EWN.
Good morning, I'm Sviso Zulu. We start with news just in. The Madlanga Commission of Inquiry is considering legal action against controversial Northwest businessman Brian Mokhotsi after he didn't show up to testify today. Mokhotsi called in sick without producing a medical certificate. His first appearance was in November last year at the Commission to speak about allegations he meddled in police affairs, including influencing suspended Minister of Police Senzo Mchunu to disband the Political Killings Task Team. He has told the Commission he's an informant working with SAPS Crime Intelligence. Evidence leader Matthew Chaskelson says there were new issues he wanted to engage with Mokhotsi on.
Unfortunately, this morning we received a message from Mr. Mokhotsi saying that he is ill, and he has undertaken to get us a medical certificate in the course of the day. It's a very unfortunate situation. I would ask that we don't take any final decisions about how to respond to it until we've had the opportunity of looking at the medical certificate that he's assured me will come through later today.
Commission Chairperson Buiseli Madlanga says the Commission will not take any action until advised by the evidence leader, who's requested more time to be given to Mokhotsi to present the medical certificate.
But for your request, our idea was to say at present and until we have a medical certificate, Mr. Mokhotsi is in contempt, and our idea when we discussed the matter amongst the three of us was to say because he is in contempt from where we are sitting, we are going to have the Commission initiate the necessary legal processes against him.
The city of Ekurhuleni, meanwhile, has formally requested the public protector to conduct an independent investigation into an alleged irregular tender awarded to the wife of suspected crime boss Vusmuzi Kat Matlala. Last week, the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry heard startling allegations that Tsakani Matlala defrauded the city of about 3.7 million rand. Her company, Buena Vista Learning Academy, was awarded a tender 3 years ago to provide municipal employees with specialized and professional skills development training. However, it's alleged the company was not registered as an accredited skills provider and had been registered as a Shisanyama just days before submitting its bid for the contract. City of Ekurhuleni spokesperson Pagamile Mbengashe says the allegations presented before the commission are concerning.
The allegations relate to accreditation issues, company registration discrepancies, and the disbursement of approximately 3.4 million rand in CETA funding. An internal audit review has also been initiated by the city manager. The city will fully cooperate with the Madlanga Commission and decisive action will be taken should wrongdoing be confirmed.
The Limpopo Education Department has confirmed that schools in the Capricorn district will open today amid a scholar transport saga. Posts have been circulated online and social media claiming there will be no teaching and learning after non-compliant scholar transport vehicles were impounded. The Transport Department in the province conducted an operation and clamped down on unroadworthy vehicles. Jabuli Limbata has more.
The Education Department says all systems are in place to ensure that teaching takes place today. The province's Transport Department says it will be providing vehicles to ensure learners get to school safely. Education Department spokesperson Mike Maringa says law enforcement authorities are on standby to deal with any attempts of disruptions.
We are working with the law enforcement agencies to assist us to deal with faceless and baseless posters that are flying on the social media, threatening learners who are supposed to be at school today.
He says all learners are expected in all schools today. Jabuli Lembata, Eyewitness News.
Iran says it's unwilling to negotiate with the U.S. as it strikes the country for a third day. The conflict is spreading, with Israel trading fire with Hezbollah, which is the armed Shiite movement closely tied to Iran's Islamic Republic in Lebanon. Israeli strikes on Lebanon have killed at least 31 people and wounded 149 this morning. The Israeli strikes came after Hezbollah claimed responsibility for hits on an Israeli missile defense site. U.S. President Donald Trump says attacks will continue at full force until Washington's objectives are achieved and admits there will likely be more casualties after U.S. Central Command confirmed 3 U.S. soldiers had been killed in an Iranian attack. Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi says the killing of its supreme leader Al-Khamenei complicates peace efforts.
This is obvious that this assassination would make this confrontation more complicated and even more dangerous. It is absolutely unprecedented and a big violation of international law that a leader of another country is assassinated by foreign forces.
Gold is trading at $5,407.25 an ounce. The rand is at 16.19 to the dollar, 21.62 to the pound, 18.96 to the euro. Brent crude oil is at $75.53 a barrel.
And in the traffic, we still have got huge traffic volumes coming out of the city of Tshwane this morning. If you're traveling on the N1 South towards Rangel Avenue, you do expect those delays, as well as on the N1 North towards Linwood. This is due to an accident right near Linwood Road. Delays coming out of the Flying Saucer interchange.
A partly cloudy day in store for Gauteng with isolated showers and thunder showers expected. The temperatures will peak at highs between 24 and 27 degrees. The top story in EW and this hour, the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry is considering legal action against controversial Northwest businessman Brian Mokhotsi after he didn't show up to testify today.
EWN, in touch, in tune and independent. For the latest, visit ewn.co.za or download the EWN app.
You're with Clement Manyathela
On 702.
Let's walk the talk. Streaming on the Prime Media Plus app.
DSTV channel 856.
92.7 and 106 FM.
8 minutes after 10 o'clock. Dumelang, welcome to the second hour of the Clement Manyathela Show. Thank you for staying with us here on 702, and thank you for your calls and your contributions on the 702 open line. In fact, I will continue with some of your calls in this half hour. I just want to take a few interviews, but I'll take at least two calls and 2 WhatsApp voice notes before we wrap up this half hour. We are going to be live in Iran. In fact, that's what we have been trying to get, because we want to get someone on the ground who can sort of give us a sense of what's happening on the ground since Operation Epic Fury started, with Israel and America bombing Iran, and of course Iran retaliating as well. We've got someone on the ground who will tell us what's currently the situation. I've also invited the Iranian Embassy here in South Africa, right? Dr. Hamid Reza Orai is the political counselor of the Embassy of the Islamic Republic of Iran. So they'll also speak to us just to get a sense of how far is that government willing to go to avenge the leader of their government, the supreme leader who was killed over the weekend. So let's start this conversation with the Iranian Embassy here in South Africa. Dr. Orai is that political counselor of the Embassy of the Islamic Republic of Iran. Dr. Orai, thank you so much for making time for us. Good morning.
Good morning, Clement. Thank you for having me. And thank you, and let's say hello to all of your audiences.
Yeah. What is the current situation from what you have been briefed about so far in Iran? Do we know how many people have been killed since this new wave of war started?
Actually, what has happened, that's illegal attack, it's continuously going to our country. You are hearing what is happening in my country. Waiting for that and just praying that the number of that casualty be not that much.
Okay. And as Iran, what is your plan here? Because what America and Israel said before they started this Operation Epic Fury, they said that they want the Iranian people to rise up. So what they can do is what they have done so far. So send some missiles, take out the supreme leader. But they said, Iranians, this is your opportunity and this may be the only time. Is that what is being seen on the ground, where residents are rising up against the administration?
Clement, while they are bombing each and every place in our country, how can they tell that they just attacked my country because of Iranian people? Clement, in just one of their bombardments in a school, they killed almost 200 innocent kids. So let's not accept from them telling that they are doing that for the sake of Iranian people. They are doing that for their own interest. And for sure, they last night I heard that they bombed a place that so many of Iranians are gathered to eat food, those street foods. So it's not acceptable to say that. And for sure, Iranians did not and will not accept that justification to attack my country.
Okay. How far then is Iran willing to go to avenge the assassination of the supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei? Because that's what the officials had said over the weekend, that they will retaliate, they will avenge the assassination of their leader. I mean, where do you draw the line? Because now the concern is there may be a wider regional war, because the UAE has been targeted, Qatar has been targeted, and they have released statements together with other countries in the Middle East saying that they have a right to also defend themselves, and they don't seem to be happy with your actions as Iran.
Clement, about those neighboring countries, before anything happens, We warned all of them. And we are not attacking those countries. We are attacking military bases of U.S. and assets, for example, and Israeli assets, which are in their soils. As our Minister of Foreign Affairs talked to all of his counterparts in those countries, he asserted that these attacks, these retaliation are not to their sovereignty or to their soil. It's just to the assets and the military bases of US and Israel, which is located there. And to continuation of that, let's say, defense from us, it's a matter of will. We do have that willpower to defend ourselves. And let me correct you. We cannot avenge. We just can revenge. Our supreme leader and our innocent people are much more worthier than anyone can think. We just try to revenge and show the world that we defend ourselves and we defend our country. So we will continue defending ourselves until they stop attacking us.
How much of the Iranian infrastructure has been destroyed by the latest bombs? Do you know at all? Because the U.S. President said they wanted to attack your missiles, they wanted to attack your potential, nuclear capabilities. Has an assessment been done about how far these bombs went in targeting that infrastructure?
I have no idea. I haven't received any information yet. But in that 12-day war, they told that they invaded to all of our nuclear facility. If they were right, why they are now telling that they are attacking nuclear facility? But I have no information regarding that.
Okay. I want to ask you now about the protests that we saw in Iran last year, because there are lots of civilians that died, and maybe you can share that number with us if it's been updated. How many civilians were killed during those protests? Because that's often one of the reasons that are given about how the administration in Iran seems to be treating its own civilians, and that's why some other countries feel there is a need here to intervene.
Clement, they saw that Iranian government killing its people, and they, for the sake of those people, attacked Iran to even again kill those people. It's not a good justification for the illegal attack. About what happened in Iran, we believe, and we have those documents and what they mentioned in social media that you can search and Google it wherever possible. It was a continuation of that 12-year war, and that was a plan that they have due to start this war. The number of the people that we lost, which each and every of them are precious for us, is 3,100 something.
That's a lot of civilians to lose over
it's so
protests.
Much. See, Clement, even one of them is so much. Even one of them. But now we are talking about this illegal attack that is happening against my country.
And I get that, yes, I get that, Dr. Orai, but how do you justify that as an administration, that there are people who were protesting, whether you agreed with them or not, to kill over 2,000 of your civilians? That can never be justified.
Clement, it's our president, our late leader, also apologized for what have happened to our people. But you must know that, and your audiences, it's all plot of U.S. and Israel. The plot was to making the number of casualty more and more. That's the plan that they had, and now they're continuing their plan in that illegal war that they are doing it against my country. Why no one telling that the number that is killing during this bombardment is too much?
Which is why it's
each and every person, each and every Iranian is a priceless one. We cannot put any price on them. They are so important to us. We were really concerned and sad about what has happened in my country, but now is the time to defend ourselves against oppressors.
Let me now ask about another issue that seems to be of concern when it comes to Iran. There are some militant groups that America and Israel is always accusing you of Iran of supporting. I mean, take Hezbollah, for instance. They've been directly responsible for a number of attacks that have killed Jewish people and Israeli civilians in the Middle East and globally. And America has said you've basically supported terrorist organizations that have brought devastation to the people of Israel, but also these are terrorist organizations that are consistently shouting death to America, and they want to see that country obliterated.
Clement, USA is not the police of world. It cannot say who is a terrorist and who is not terrorist. If someone did something, you can just ask them. You can just make retaliation. What USA silent when Israeli regime killed more than 70,000 innocent people in Palestine? Isn't that a matter of humanity? USA is just concerning about Israelis. Why when it comes to oppress people of Palestine, while it comes to people of Iran, why they are silent? It's a genocide happened in Palestine. Each and every international body accepted that. Wasn't they concerned about that? Weren't they concerned about that? It's not acceptable. It's just a selective use of human rights term.
And of course, two wrongs do not make a right. As Iran, though, are you saying that your relationship with these proxy organizations, some of these militant groups, that relationship is justified? And do you support them, organizations like Hezbollah?
We do support who and each ever entity who is supporting Palestine. We are supporting Palestine. We do not accept that Hezbollah is a terrorist entity. And actually, you know that Israeli regime almost bombarded so many of those commanders and our brothers in Lebanon and Hezbollah, but now it's a matter of us, matter of Iran. Now they attacked us, and now we need to defend ourselves. If they wanted to talk about Hezbollah, today was not the day to talk about it. The justification that they used to attack us was the nuclear weapon, was the missile power, and was the fake reason of supporting Iran.
Do you have nuclear power?
You mean nuclear
weapons? Mm-hmm.
Why are you asking this question? It's for a long time that we do not have nuclear weapons and we are not willing to have it.
You are not willing to do what?
We are not willing to have a nuclear weapon.
So you are not willing to have nuclear weapons, and you have not even expanded rapidly your enrichment?
No.
And when last was the IAEA in Iran to monitor?
The IAEA sent some reports that telling that we cannot. I haven't read their latest report that went out. They told that we cannot verify where are the enriched uranium and what is the situation of the nuclear facilities. That's right, because in the 12 days war, Israel, USA sent missiles to all of them, and we even could not go inside that facility to check. It doesn't mean that we have that facilities. They could not reach that facilities.
Okay, Dr. Hamid Riza Orai, I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for coming through this morning to speak on behalf of Iran, that is the political counselor of the Embassy of the Islamic Republic of Iran. I thought we should bring them just so we can have a voice from the government to get a sense of what the plan is going forward. And of course, you may are probably thinking, are they denying having the nuclear weapons? Are they denying the enrichment? But then the thing is, if you're going to criticize them for even denying that, are you also going to criticize Israel? Because we don't know if Israel actually has nukes. And the reason we don't know is because they've taken a decision to be ambiguous in their response. They will never tell you directly whether they have it or not, especially the presidents from the past interviews of them that I've seen, and I've watched a number of them, unless that position has changed. Israel has not allowed the IAEA, which monitors these things, to come into their country. So if you're going to go and say, yeah, but Iran is lying, I'm sure they do have nuclear capability and the enrichment is growing, but maybe it's not at a point where they need it to turn into a weapon and weaponize it, but they've got it. Why are they not just saying so? Well, why is Israel also not just saying so and allow an independent institution that can come in and monitor that? It's 25 minutes now after 10 o'clock.
You're with Clement Manyathela.
702. Let's walk the talk.
I want to bring in now George Mutema, who is the CEO of the Board of Airline Representatives of South Africa, because I think we should get a sense of there are a lot of you that are travelers. You're probably planning an international trip. You are going to go via the Middle East. Some of you are probably listening to us from countries that have been affected since some of the airlines shut down operations. George Mutema is the CEO of the Board of Airline Representatives of South Africa. Thank you for making time for us. Mr. Mutema, good morning.
Thank you very much, Clement, and to the 702 listeners.
Yeah. So for our listeners who were planning to travel and they were going to go via whether it's Doha or Dubai, and many of these countries that are affected in the Middle East, what's the impact of what's happened there or what's happening there currently on travel for our citizens or just travelers generally who are here who are planning to head that way?
No, thank you very much, Clement. Look, I mean, the immediate impact, which is something that probably has a different type of impact as opposed to those travelers that are using both Doha and Dubai as a point of getting into other destinations. You know that both those two entities, two hubs, have been created for that specific purpose. In order for people to obviously fly via Dubai or Qatar to get into other markets. At least they have an opportunity to try and obviously look into redirecting their flights into the different other airlines that are not impacted with their airspace not being closed. The challenge, Clement, is basically for the point-to-point type travelers, those that were to land in Dubai and obviously maybe go locally within the Gulf region, those that are impacted directly because the airspace is definitely closed. But those that were to end up being in Europe, the advice, I think, from a BASA point of view is simply to say that let's look at how best you then redirect your flight by making sure that you fly directly as opposed to via Dubai or Qatar. And the airlines, both of my airlines that are impacted, which is Emirates, SAA, Qatar and Etihad, that are the Gulf carriers that are impacted at this point in time, have created a space to be able to entertain all of the customers that are impacted. We have less impact at this point in time, both from the Cape Town airport and OR Tambo in terms of stranded passengers. But the only thing that we can raise from an association point of view, Clement, is the issue similar to what Dubai is doing, similar to what Abu Dhabi is doing. They have tourists that are flying into this country. We probably have the same tourists that are in this country.
Yeah.
Government has taken a stance of making sure that those that are obviously, you can imagine a tourist who books in to be in Dubai for a particular period in time, and they've got money that's allocated for that, and now they've got an extended period. We now need interventions.
Yeah.
And the government there has taken a stance of intervening, and in fact, even instructing, we know in Dubai, instructing hotels to obviously allow those passengers to be able to stay in for a period as long as the closure is there. We need that similar type of system from a country point of view, because in as much as at this point in time, what our airlines are doing is to try and accommodate those passengers. But airlines cannot be able, to absorb those costs for a longer period of time.
They can only do so much. Yeah. George Mutema, thank you so much, sir. CEO of the Board of Airline Representatives of South Africa, giving us a sense of the situation at the moment. Let me wrap up with some calls on WhatsApp. Saul, you are in Highlands North. Thank you for your patience. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning, Clement.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'll be brief. As much as you say about international law, which I agree with, but there's another side to the coin. How come then Iran has been allowed to get away with what she has by financing? And I heard the Iranian ambassador, Hezbollah, whether you like it or not, is a terrorist organization, has carried out terrorists. Hamas. I mean, as far as I'm concerned and as the world's concerned, Iran knew about the October the 7th. It was planned and financed by Iran. Where does Hamas get all their financing from? All over the world. But here's an even better one. When Khomeini was arrived, the Iranian leader, in 1994, there was a bomb attack in Argentina, Buenos Aires. 85 Jewish community center. 85 people were killed. 300 were wounded. The Supreme Court of Argentina in 2024 indicted Iran directly for planning and carrying out that with Hezbollah. So please, they can come. They can say whatever they like. So whether it's justified or not, I don't know. But they definitely do not have clean hands.
So in Highlands North, thank you so much.
Hi, Clem, it's Michelle here. Thanks for last Friday. We need to look at it from a different point of view. Yes, the Islamic regime took over in 1979, but how? The last time they had an election, they stole the election. The Iranian people majority want to have their country back. So if ever there was a country that was occupied, it is Iran. And besides that, they are the terrorist proxies of the world. The Houthis, the Yemenites. To me, it's a case of, we need to talk fact for what it is. And extreme Muslim is actually a danger to society and Western democracy. End of story.
I think the extremity of any religion, depending on also how you define extremism, is a danger to society. It's not just Muslims who get to be extreme that we think that's dangerous. It's Judaism that gets to be exploited. It's Christianity that gets to be exploited. So any extremism of any religion is actually a problem, I would argue. It's 10:32. Time for the latest in Eyewitness News headlines. Fiso, good morning.
Thanks, Clement. Good morning. The Madlanga Commission of Inquiry is considering legal action against controversial Northwest businessman Brian Mokhotsi for being a no-show for his testimony today. He called in sick without producing a medical certificate. Mokhotsi first appeared at the commission last November to speak on allegations he meddled in police affairs, including influencing suspended Minister of Police Senzo Mchunu to disband the Political Killings Task Team. Justice Minister Mamloko Kubai is today leading the national launch of the 30-year anniversary of the Constitution. The Constitution is the supreme law of the nation and it was enacted in 1996 after the fall of apartheid. And an Iranian drone has hit the runway of a UK military base in Cyprus. This has prompted the European Union to vow solid backing for member states as the US-Israeli conflict with Iran spread. Cyprus says an unmanned aerial vehicle crashed into the military facilities of the British bases in Akrotiri, causing minor material damage. Those are the headlines. This EWN and more at 11 or as it happens.
EWN Traffic.
While travelling in the city of Tshwane, we still have got queuing traffic on the N1 North. This is between the Flying Saucer Interchange and Rigel Avenue due to an earlier accident. Please be on the lookout. Try to use the N14 North through areas like Centurion, especially if you're heading towards the PTA CBD. While travelling on the N1 South and Sunning Hill, we've got an accident reported right near the Baku turn-off, delays from Rivonia Road. There's also an accident seen on the N12 East heading towards Benoni. This one is right before Atlas Road. It's causing heavy traffic volumes as you come out of the R21. There's also queuing traffic on the R24 West between Edenville Road and the Gilulis interchange. While traveling on the N3 North, do expect some delays coming out of the Geldenes turnoff. This is due to an accident right near Van Buren Road in the middle lane, so please be on the lookout there and approach with care. More updates coming up. Stay tuned.
There's more EWN on air, online, and on the EWN app.
Without insurance, saving on your car insurance feels like scoring the last cinnamon donut at the bakery, right? 45-year-old Nivan saves an unbelievable 461 Rand a month on his 2025 Volkswagen T-Cross. Get a quote now. And if OutSurance can save you money, ask them for 500 Rand or 1,500 Rand if you've been claim free and with the same insurer for 3 years. Get savings or cash. SMS out to 45142. That's out to 45142. OutSurance, licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's and information online.
If you think you cannot afford a lawyer, think again. Clientele Legal has made professional legal services affordable. You receive up to 745,000 Rand worth of legal services per year. Our range of plans include cover for you, your spouse, children, and extended family. Plans include cover for civil, criminal, and labor-related matters. Whether it's protection orders, gender-based violence, uncontested divorce, or poor service, your Clientele Legal lawyer will be there to assist you. Our services are convenient. Simply pick up the phone and call your lawyer or send us an email and we'll get back to you. All plans include a bail benefit of up to 5,000 Rand and we'll go to the police station and pay it for you. Plus, Clientele Legal offers you 24-hour telephonic legal advice. SMS Legal to 48721. That's legal to 48721. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
This year is the year. I'll be catching flights and not feelings. Serving looks Monday to Sunday. 5 a.m. club. Small things. I'll be awake before a Hadida can even say, This year things are gonna change.
Okay, so what would you like to order then?
Just hit me with the usual. Kota chicken, single chips, and a roll.
Oh, the more things change, the more they stay the same. Get the Nando's flame grilled quarter chicken, single chips, and roll for only 82 Rand. Nando's. Oh, what a place.
On Friday, the 13th of March, the Grateful Hearts Foundation invites you to celebrate motherhood, love, and legacy at Pelo, a mother's love, powerful evening of art, food, and wine in Rosebank, hosted at Aspire Art and the Atrium at Keys Art Mile. Experience works by Sam Mhlengetwa, Zizi Poposwa, and Buemo Diale, and more. Enjoy a harvest table by Lady Day, fine wine, and an intimate artist panel. All proceeds support pediatric cardiac care through Nelson Mandela Children's Hospital. Get your tickets today on Howler.
You're with Clement Manyathela.
702.
It's 23 minutes now before 11 o'clock. I got a message from someone on the WhatsApp line. Who's this? Oh, Tlog, who says, Clement, international law rule books have been thrown out of the window. It's like these people didn't ever learn anything from the First and Second World Wars. Another one says, Clement, according to the Center for Arms Control and Non-Proliferation, Israel is widely believed to possess 90 plutonium-based nuclear warheads and to have produced enough plutonium for 100 to 200 weapons. But how do you confirm that? That's what they believe, but for us to confirm that, and by us I mean the world, you would need the IAEA, because that is, right, an institution that all the United Nations allied countries agreed would be the one that sort of monitors nuclear energy in different countries, because you don't want it to get it to the point where it can be weaponized. But that, in fact, sends us nicely into our next conversation, because we're trying to understand some multilateral or multinational organizations that exist today. Why were they formed? Why have we find ourselves in situations where we've got like organizations like the World Trade Organization, like the United Nations? Like, why do we have the World Bank? We've got a number of multinational organizations, and I want us to, over the next couple of weeks, bring in experts who can explain what these organizations are about, what their mandate is, and what's been the impact of their formations. And today we start with the United Nations, which you and I have debated a number of times, and we've asked whether or not it has succeeded in its mission, because it actually turned 80 years old last year. It was born in the rubble of World War II. And the whole idea was to ensure that the world never descended into that kind of catastrophe again. I mean, its founding promise was collective security, the idea that nations acting together could keep the peace, protect human rights, and lift the world's poorest people out of poverty. But let's be honest, has the United Nations been able to do that? 8 decades later? Have they been able to do that? Is there collective security? Are we seeing nations that work together to keep the peace, to protect human rights? It's in its worst financial crisis in decades. That's the United Nations. I mean, the United States is traditionally its largest contributor, but it's cut funding dramatically under the Trump administration. We now have a board of peace chaired by Donald Trump, and other world leaders sit on that board of peace, which some suggest Trump wants to use it to sort of replace the United Nations. What do you think have been the failures or successes of the United Nations? Professor David Munyai is the director of the Center for Africa-China Studies at the University of Johannesburg, who's going to guide us through this conversation. Prof, thank you for making time. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Let's go back to 1945 to understand why the United Nations was created and what was the promise that it made to the globe and to humanity.
The thinking was quite clear, and South Africa was in the forefront with the anti-SMART playing a critical role. In the absence of a global government, or what we call the supranational, and the thinking was that you bring all these loose governments into one body with an aim of dealing with issues of preventing future wars, maintaining international peace and security, promoting cooperation between countries, protect human rights, support global development and human aid, and a number of other issues that keep on cropping up, new issues, like now we're talking about climate change, AI, and a number of other issues. There were satellites, issues that were never thought at that time, but now they're bringing in a complex set of challenges for the UN. It was never made for that. The model itself does not fit challenges of today.
So in that sense then, in your observation, in your analysis, has it succeeded in most of the missions that it had?
It's a balanced kind of situation. I think for us on the African continent, would say a mixed bag. There are certain areas where it has done extremely well. We're mindful that the bulk of global problems are on the African continent, whether it's peacekeeping or aid, humanitarian. So therefore, I think we need the UN more than most continents, given the challenges that we face. The challenge, however, has been the great power rivalry that whether during Cold War, even now, we see the bigger five, the 5 permanent members. Whenever they agree, United Nations seem to work quite well. But where their interests diverge, I think we also see. We saw it in the Congo during the Cold War. We see it now in a number of areas. So that is a major issue. There's also an institutional paralysis where institutions were set. I think you were speaking about the nuclear, whether Israel has nuclear or not. There are certain agencies that were designed to monitor with experts, but they're unable to do anything if the powerful countries disagree on those issues. The funding crisis you have mentioned, with a view that it might close. Currently, the UN does not have sufficient resources to cover all its operations. The new norms of conflict, which I've mentioned, the issues of legitimacy in Africa, Latin America, and Asia, for reforms that we need to keep this organization, however, updated to fit in terms of representation, issues of democracy, adding all in new issues, while President Donald Trump, on the other hand, wants an old UN that is Western hegemony, US-led, recreating it in a way. So that clashes here in terms of what we stand for.
Okay. So given where we find ourselves now, what I'm trying to understand then what the future of the United Nations looks like. Because as you've indicated, I mean, the way it's just structured, the Security Council is paralyzed by this great power rivalry and the veto powers of the P5. And it's really struggled to act decisively on almost every major conflict in recent years. So one wonders, are we now slowly sort of going back to an era where might is right? Because the United Nations was created to avoid that era where powerful countries can just do as they please because they are powerful and they've got military might. But when you look at recent events, military interventions, are we slowly going back to that era, or does this call for a serious and more urgent rethinking of how this United Nations is structured and operates?
I think the best author for me that captures the current situation is an Italian scholar, Gramsci, that says that the old is dying and the new is not yet born. So we are in that transition where the old post-1945 UN is slowly dying. I think we haven't certified it dead yet, but it's just a matter of time. And yet the new is not yet there. We have a number of countries shooting up, such as in the global south, the rise of BRICS. You also have lately, even within the Western world, I think our world has a tendency of seeing things in black and white. Western world and non-Western, but there's fragmentation even in the West itself. You have middle powers. In EU, Spain stands out, does not stand with the US on a number of issues. On trade and other issues, we see Canada calling for middle powers somehow to resuscitate certain rule-based international order. So there's this confusion. Therefore, I think countries tend to follow countries that are like them. South Africa will be closer to Canada on certain issues and China on other issues. So it's a quite confusing world that we're living in.
And one wonders, what is the new that is yet to be born? To borrow from that saying. What are your thoughts? 011-883-0702. That's the number to dial. What are your thoughts of the United Nations? You've heard what Professor David Manyathela had to say. You can also send your WhatsApps on 072-7021-702. We'll continue this conversation after this. It's 12 minutes before 11.
Kick off to glory with Hollywood Bets and Aziz Shege. Be in the game. Go full speed ahead with the epic competition. You stand to win a share of 4 million rand in cash and prizes, including an all-new Toyota Corolla Cross. Bet 10 rand or more on any soccer fixture or fixtures online or at your nearest branch. Live life in the fast lane. Bet now for your chance to score. T's and C's apply. Hollywood Sportsbook is a licensed betting operator. No persons under the age of 18 years are permitted to gamble. Winners know when to stop. South African Responsible Gambling Foundation toll-free counselling line 0800 006 008 or WhatsApp HELP to 076 675 0710.
The Johannesburg Philharmonic Orchestra presents an evening of beautiful music as Conrad van Alphen conducts the second concert of the season, bringing to the podium a delightful mix of Fauré, there's Chopin and Beethoven. Award-winning virtuoso pianist Ludmil Angelov takes center stage with two magnificent pieces at the Linda Auditorium at 7:30 p.m. on Thursday, the 5th of March. Tickets are available on Quicket. Visit jpo.co.za for more information.
Morning, sir.
Hey, got up the shop.
Topping up.
Yeah. Hey, remember when our coffee didn't taste this good?
And when the Wi-Fi dropped 3 times a day?
Yo, my
good
man.
times.
Now we've leveled up. High-speed Wi-Fi, private spaces, on-site support. This place runs like a machine.
Yo, flippin' seamless.
Yeah, that's WeWork, eh?
And my team's like loving it, eh? Productivity's up. No one's fighting over the fridge.
Yeah, I know. It's the dream.
WeWork, Africa's largest co-working spaces. WeWork.co.za. Made for work, built for business.
7:02.
The Clement Manyathela Show.
Let's walk the talk.
10 minutes before 11 o'clock, a lot of our content is going to be on international relations. You're going to hear that a lot this year. And that's because of just what's happening in the world, what seems to be dying, as Professor Munyai said, and what is yet to be born. We don't really know what even multilateral institutions are going to look like once whatever is yet to be born is actually born. You look at the United Nations and why it was formed, and you look at what's currently happening in the world and why the United Nations is unable to prevent that as it was established to do so. And that is making us ask some serious questions about these multinational organizations. So we've started a series today that looks at these multinational organizations, whether it's the World Trade Organization, whether it's the World Bank, whether it's the World Health Organization, and many others. Today we are starting by looking at the United Nations. And I've got Professor David Munyai, who's the director of the Center for Africa-China Studies at the University of Johannesburg, helping us understand what the United Nations was formed for, when, and what the circumstances were like at the time, and where do we find ourselves now. Let me start with some of the WhatsApp messages that have come through on 0727021702. Anonymous says, hi, Clement. Is the UN dying? Well, the United Nations has been shown to be ineffective and obsolete, which is evident by design, depending on the mighty for its existence. And I wonder, Professor Munyai, if that is not sort of, what do you call it? I don't want to call it a mistake, but maybe that is what they didn't really scrutinize in the beginning, when the United Nations was structured in the way that it is, because it still depends heavily on the mighty for its existence. And it still gives these precious rights, veto rights, to the mighty countries in the world.
So indeed, I think victors in any war, whether it's history, whether it's structure or governance, dictate the outcome. And if you look at the United Nations Security Council, the very same victors of the Second World War are the ones who are now dictating what we've been living under since 1945. They're the ones who wrote the UN Charter. United States in particular, it had so much advantages after the Second World War. It had resources. its infrastructure were never disturbed during the war itself, other than Pearl Harbor. And it came into the war very late. And so it was financially strong to help Europe, reconstruction in terms of infrastructure and other things. And it was able to have most of these institutions in its own country. The UN is in the United States, and most of these bodies are in the United States because it was the most dominant power of that time. But in the past 80 years, I think we see that power dwindling. It's being challenged. And Donald Trump comes at a time when he's fighting back. It's a pushback to reassert that hegemony in a way that disturbs what we would want to see, especially most of us in the global south, who wants democracy, equality, and fairness in the conduct of global affairs.
Great claim. I don't see anything changing even in what is yet to be born, because the same ideologies are being recycled from one generation to the next generation. Power is being recycled from one generation to the next generation. It's still the old boys club claim, so I don't see any change.
Yeah, so this veto system probably just makes the Security Council fundamentally incapable of doing its job. And I mean, why would the powerful countries want to give up that power? Professor Munyai, there's this school of thought that the United Nations is simply too broken to reform. Do you agree with this? I mean, is reform still possible? And what shape would that even take? Because again, I mean, I don't see the powerful countries giving up the right to be the powerful countries and be treated differently, even, with the United Nations Security Council.
There are a number of options out there. There are those who are arguing that we should eliminate the entire veto power and have a UN based on democracy and enforcing, while others, personally, I favor the reforms in absence of a revolution and global war. I think reform is the only way out, ensuring that there's equal representation, ensuring that we all respect human rights, we are fair in the application of the tools that we have on any issue, in the manner in which we look at the situation, whether it's nuclear issues or any other issues that are affecting the world today, the climate change, the trade, and the like. And therefore, I think reform ensuring that everyone contributes equally in this global governance, and those rules are followed by everyone. But as it stands, is that the mighty and most powerful, they have this selective lenses of looking at how to deal with crisis. Where it suits them most, they require United Nations to come in to give them legitimacy to achieve their strategic objectives. But in areas where their interest is not covered by UN, they tend to go it alone, as the case now in Iran and so many other cases.
Yeah. Do we actually know, Professor Munyai, what the origin and purpose of this veto power of some of the countries was?
Veto power, it's just as it says, it's the power of the mighty, the powerful, that we are all equal. It's an animal farm kind of a setting, that all these animals, all countries are the same, but others are more important than everyone else. Because you have mighty army, your economy, you can dictate in your region. And at the global level, the former colonial powers, I mean, they wouldn't want to be dictated by small countries. So it's that case that we have a right to say no to anything, because we won the war, the Second World War. And therefore, that's why Germany was kept out, Japan was kept out. But at the moment, some countries like the UK, with all due respect, it's just affirmative action for it to be a member of United Nations Security Council at the moment, because their economy is not anywhere closer to Germany or Japan, for instance. So even using that formula, you have to adjust, upgrade other nations and downgrade others based if we are using that formula. But that's not what is happening.
Okay. And just lastly, with what's currently happening in Iran and the threat of this possible wider regional war, there's no way of looking towards the United Nations, is there? I mean, they have not been able to stop any of these kind of military interventions and operations in recent times. So what would make it so powerful now to suddenly just stop what's happening now?
There's absolutely no way out. And I think the greatest fear is not just the death of the UN, it is that miscalculation will happen and the next global war will start. The First and Second World Wars were started by sheer mistakes. And nothing stops the situation in the Middle East as we see it now to trigger a Third World War. And God forbid.
God forbid.
It should
God
happen.
forbid. Professor David Munyai, thank you so much for joining us. It's 11:11.
From your pet's bowl
Chipolito, bro.
or Barcelona, maybe Bordeaux,
How about Brazil?
or Butts, Betty's, Baviance, Bella Bella, or even Benoni. Buy any Hills pet food and you could win one of 10 holidays worth 200,000 Rand each. Or take the bucks. Scientifically proven formulas for your pet. An adventure for you. Hills Pet Nutrition. Science does more. T's and C's apply.
Let's hear from Al, owner of Johnson's Cable, why it pays to switch to Outsurance Business Insurance.
I thought it was going to be difficult to switch to Outsurance Business Insurance. Switching was so quick and easy. I'm happy with the premium that I'm paying now.
For electrical, tradesman services, and all other businesses, get a quote today and see why it pays to switch to Outsurance Business Insurance. Visit outsurance.co.za or call 08600 60,000 today. Licensed insurer and FSP. TCs and information online.
To walk the talk is to turn words into meaningful actions. And it's what we at 702 are committed to doing every day. We are also committed to following the rules set out by the Broadcasting Complaints Commission's Code of Conduct. To give you balanced programming, fair comments, and accurate news. But if we stumble along the way and you feel we are not living up to the code, let us know on comment@702.co.za. And if after that you're still not happy, you can direct your complaint in writing to the Broadcasting Complaints Commission. Email bccsa@nabsa.co.za. For more, visit bccsa.co.za.
This is EWN.
Good morning, I'm Sfiso Zulu. The Madlanga Commission of Inquiry is considering legal action against controversial Northwest businessman Brian Mokgotsi for being a no-show for his testimony today. He called in sick without producing a medical certificate this morning. Mokgotsi first appeared at the Commission last November to speak on allegations he meddled in police affairs, including influencing suspended Minister of Police Sinzo Mchunu to disband the Political Killings Task Team. He's told the Commission he is an informant working for SAPS Crime Intelligence. Evidence leader Matthew Chaskelson says there were new issues he wanted to engage Mokgotsi on.
Unfortunately, this morning we received a message from Mr. Mokgotsi saying that he is ill and he has undertaken to get us a medical certificate in the course of the day. It's a very unfortunate situation. I would ask that we don't take any final decisions about how to respond to it until we've had the opportunity of looking at the medical certificate that he's assured me will come through later today.
Chairperson Buiseli Madlanga says the Commission will not take any action until advised by the evidence leader, who requested more time be given to Mokgotsi to present the medical certificate.
But for your request, our idea was to say at present and until we have a medical certificate, Mr. Mokgotsi is in contempt, and our idea when we discussed the matter amongst the three of us was to say because he is in contempt from where we are sitting, we are going to have the Commission initiate the necessary legal processes against him.
Justice Minister Mamluku Kubai is today leading the national launch of the 30-year anniversary of the Constitution, which is the supreme law of the nation and was enacted in 1996 after the fall of apartheid. The minister is joined by Chapter 9 institutions at the launch that is held at the Apartheid Museum. Jabuli Lembata reports.
The anniversary celebration marks 3 decades since former President Nelson Mandela signed the Constitution into law in 1996, which came into effect the following year. The theme for this year is 30 years of constitutional democracy, one constitution, one nation, reflect, renew and recommit. Justice Minister Mamluku Kubai will also launch Human Rights Month at today's program. At the center of it is the commemoration of the 69 lives lost during the Sharpeville massacre. Ministerial spokesperson Terence Manansis says the program will also evaluate how far we have come in realizing the rights to human dignity, equality and freedom.
The minister will further use the occasion to reaffirm the central place of the Constitution as the foundation of South Africa's democratic order and as a living instrument that must continue to transform the daily lives of all who live in the Republic.
He adds that the joint launch highlights the Constitution as the cornerstone of South Africa's democracy, with the Bill of Rights serving as the mechanism that gives practical effect to its values in the everyday lives of all who live in the country. Jabuli Lembata, Eyewitness News.
And an Iranian drone has hit in the runway of a UK military base in Cyprus. This has prompted the European Union to vow solid backing for member states as the US-Israeli conflict with Iran spreads. Cyprus says an unmanned aerial vehicle crashed into the military facilities of the British bases in Aroktiri, causing minor material damage. Britain agreed yesterday to allow the United States to use British military bases to fire defensive strikes aimed at destroying Iranian missiles and their launchers. EU Chief Ursula von der Leyen says they stand collectively, firmly and unequivocally with their member states in the face of any threat. Meanwhile, Britain's Foreign Minister Yvette Cooper told Sky News that the airport runway was affected.
This is an unmanned drone strike, specifically on the airport runway, and we're not able to provide further information and detail at this point. But obviously, all of the precautionary measures are being taken around the base.
Gold is trading at $5,410, 5 cents an ounce. The rand is at 16.12 to the dollar, 21.52 to the pound, 18.89 to the euro. Brent crude oil is at $79.71 a barrel.
And in the traffic, we've got an accident on the N1 South in the Sunning Hill areas right near the Baku interchange. Delays from Rivonia Road. There's also queuing traffic on the N12 as well as the R24 West between Edenville Road and the Kilulis interchange.
A partly cloudy day in store for Gauteng with isolated showers. The temperatures will peak at highs between 24 and 27 degrees. The top story in EWN this hour. The Madlanga Commission of Inquiry is considering legal action against controversial Northwest businessman Brian Mokhotsi for being a no-show for his testimony today.
EWN, in touch, in tune and independent. For the latest, visit ewn.co.za or download the EWN app.
You're with Clement Manyathela
on 702.
Let's walk the talk. Streaming on the Prime Media Plus app.
DSTV channel 856,
92.7 and 106 FM.
Seven minutes after 11 o'clock. Dumelang, welcome to the third and final hour of the Clement Manyathela Show. Thank you so much for staying with us here on 702. A number of you have been asking me to repeat the interview that I recommended, that other listener who said, as a Christian, he is confused about what's going on and he's asking himself so many questions, looking at what's happening in the Middle East. He called and he said that, and I then said to him, can I recommend something for you to watch? Because I think it'll maybe give you a new or fresh or different or even the same perspective. And I told him to go watch an interview that the American podcaster Tucker Carlson has done with the U.S. ambassador to Israel, Mike Huckabee. I watched that interview, a while back. In fact, as soon as Tucker Carlson did it, because I was really fascinated to hear how that conversation is going to go. And one of the things that he said was, this is the U.S. ambassador to Israel, was that it would be fine, basically, if Israel wanted to take it all. And by all, he meant the land that in a literal interpretation of biblical scripture was actually promised by God to the descendants of Abraham, which give or take would be some vast swathe of land in the Middle East. So, in other words, if Israel decided to wake up tomorrow and say, actually, we're not just happy with this portion of land, let's take half of Saudi Arabia, or let's take the entire Levant, or let's take a good chunk of Egypt right now. The U.S. ambassador was saying, well, Israel could do that because if you're going to use Genesis 15 as justification, Genesis 15 talks about a much bigger portion of land than what is occupied currently in Israel. So that, I thought, was a fascinating conversation between Tucker Carlson and the U.S. ambassador to Israel, Mike Huckabee. So if you just Google that, interview between Tucker Carlson and Mike Huckabee, it will pop up. And try watch it on YouTube. Because I've listened to it on podcast while I was running, but I also wanted to see their faces, and it just hits differently when you're watching the visuals. So I'd advise you to check out the YouTube version of that conversation. It's now 11 o'clock and time for our Family Matters feature.
702
Family Matters.
And today we are discussing long-distance parenting. How do you navigate parenthood from afar? Parenting is often described as one of life's greatest joys, right? And one of its greatest responsibilities. But what actually happens when parents are not able to parent their children in the way perhaps they've even always wanted to? What happens when parenting has to happen from a distance, whether due to divorce or employment opportunities, migration, or maybe the rising cost of living? Because many parents today find themselves raising their children from another province, another country, or even another continent. And for some, it's temporary, but for others, it's quite a long-term reality. And while adults may understand the reasons behind this separation, children don't always see the bigger picture, right? A move away can sometimes feel like a second loss, and then some parents just end up carrying that guilt, that fear of missing milestones, or they worry about losing connection. And children themselves may also struggle with confusion, with resentment, and even feelings of abandonment. And I'd like you to share what your experience has been. If you are a child that was raised from afar by a parent, for whatever reason, whether it's divorce, whether it's because your mom or dad was working overseas or in another province, and they were raising you from afar, how do you think that's impacted you? How have you navigated that? And maybe you're a parent yourself who has raised their children or one of their children from afar. What were the circumstances of that, and how has that shaped the dynamics of your relationship? I'd like you to call us on 011-883-0702 or send a WhatsApp to share your experiences on 072-702-1702. Ayanda Tatiana is the parenting coach and author who's joining us in studio. Ayanda, thank you so much for coming through. Great to see you.
I'm so excited to be here. We always talk on the phone.
Yeah.
So I get to.
Thank you so much. Thank you for coming in. It's always great to speak face to face.
Absolutely.
So when we talk about long distance parenting, what exactly are we referring to? And do the circumstances matter?
Yeah. So obviously the circumstances were usually different because there's so many dynamics. But what we're talking about is parents who are emotionally, psychologically, and relationally present, right? But not physically able to be there as part of like taking the child to school every day, picking them up. And sometimes that could be not there physically, like for long periods, or maybe between Monday and Friday, you are at work and then you're coming back over the weekend. I mean, it takes a whole lot more effort to be actually present in your child's life if you're not able to see them every day. I mean, parenting is tricky as it is. So now if you're going to be doing it over a distance, whatever the reasons are, it just takes a whole lot more effort and you have to be so much more intentional.
So it doesn't so much matter that the long distance parenting is as a result of, let's say, like divorce or work related or immigration related separation. It's at the end of the day, it's long distance parenting. So we look at it like that.
Yeah.
Okay. So what is the impact on the parents? Because there are many parents who often feel so guilty that they have to go drop off their kids on a Sunday with their parents, or they're leaving the country because they go away for like 8 months or sometimes a year before they come back. And yes, they're doing that for the best interest of their children, but there's still, a sort of impact that happens between the two. Let's start with the parents first. How do they often navigate that?
I think we feel guilty. And I mean, it could be so many different consequences. So it could be, there's a separation, and for this period, child has to live with the dad and the stepmom, or the other way around, or there's work opportunities, or even study opportunities for that matter. So the guilt usually comes from knowing that you're not physically there. I think, you have to really figure out how to navigate that, because whatever your purpose is that requires you to be in that situation is probably important. It's probably can't change it. But now that intentional parenting, having strategies to say, how are you going to continue to build a relationship with your children, even though you're not physically there? I think that's really important. I like to caution, because I work with a lot of parents who would have gone to China to do work in different places. And what they tend to do is they overcompensate in terms of balancing out the guilt.
Yes.
Now, this is very harmful, because then it becomes an issue with whoever's the primary caregiver of the children. They're trying to instill discipline. They're trying to do whatever in terms of routines and whatnot. And then the parent who feels a little guilty wants to, do a little more. But then it becomes a bit of a conflict both to the primary caregiver and the child. Sometimes they usually play that to advantage and want to get away with a whole lot.
The babies are always going to exploit that situation.
Yes, absolutely.
They are. So how does a child then interpret that distance, especially when they don't fully understand the reasons behind it? Because I pick up that when we have these conversations, there are people who call us and say, I realized as an adult that, I think my parent could have been more present. But as it happens when they're still young, it doesn't look like the children are realizing what's going on.
No, because remember what's happening is children are seeing their parents, moms, dads, pick up other kids, the other kids from school, and they're thinking, but why aren't I getting this kind of love and care? And that usually looks to them as I am the problem in many instances when we do our therapy sessions. So this is where age relevant, of course, conversations is very important with our children. And as they grow older, you'll give as much information as you can. But I think that it's very important that if you are in that kind of situation, you still build the relationship with the child so that they don't feel that distance, even if they're not seeing you physically, coming to pick them up, being part of the parents' meeting, coming to cheer them on at the soccer games. But they just know that you're there somewhere. You have all these positive words. And I'll chat a bit more later about the kind of strategies that you can put in place. Because, as much as in our fantasies, I have this ideal of what's a perfect family, the reality is it doesn't necessarily always translate. A lot of people in South Africa have their children being raised by extended family, grandparents, the exes, step blended families. It's very dynamic.
It was natural for us to be raised by our grandparents, and for all your cousins and all of you are all in that one household.
Yes.
But also things have changed now. So what's the impact on the relationship then between the two? So how can being a long distant parent affect the relationship with your child, and we'll get to the strategies that you can put in place later on. But from your observation, what have you seen as the impact of this kind of long distance parenting?
I think it becomes a problem if you're not intentional about building the actual relationship with the children. So you're going to get yourself in situations where there's not a lot of emotional familiarity. You're going to try and make up some rule, or maybe you're over for the weekend. And I've seen this with some of my parents. Dad comes over finally. They've been all excited to see him. But because he's a little bit more stricter, mom is a little bit more relaxed, everyone now starts to walk on eggshells. Everyone's like, now we need is going back.
It's time to go.
A little bit of resentment there, idealization, like all of these things that if we are intentional about making sure that our children still know us, even if they're not there. So the physical distance is not the actual issue. But when there's no emotional attachment that stays throughout that time that you're physically away, that's where there's going to be a serious problem. And I mean, you think about if you're raising a son, once they get to those teenage years, whether if you're the mom who's raising that son, they will need the discipline of the dad, where you're like putting your foot down, you can't do that. And sometimes it doesn't sound the same when it's coming from us as moms. And similarly, when you're raising a girl child and you're the dad, and they start wanting to experiment with mascaras and all of these things, there's an important role that a mom plays. And having that relational, access to the children, having those conversations every day, hearing if they were bullied, being able to coach them through all of that. I always feel like both parents have different roles to play. And if the child has the resource of having both parents, they're actually at a beautiful advantage. So we have to put a lot more effort. And we also have to be realistic that sometimes we're just not there. But how do you then make sure that the children feel your presence?
Yeah, and I find that because I have some friends whose parents have worked overseas, and the experience that they've shared is that the relationship ends up being too. So it's about mommy's doing this for you, and that's why when mommy comes back from Dubai or Saudi Arabia or from London where she's working as a nurse or whatever, as an accountant, whatever it is, when they come back, they come with gifts.
Yes.
And then they take you to the best school.
Right.
And then when the kids are older, they're like, actually, all I wanted was a connection with you. Even from that far away, I would have loved for us to still somehow build something. Whereas it was more, like, you brought me the best clothes, you took me to the best school because you had a great job there in London, but I missed this opportunity to have a connection with you.
Absolutely. Discuss how you did the mascara and we went completely wrong or whatever. The boy you like, the girl you like, all of those things. So it's just looking at like the long-term development impact, that emotional absence. Usually the issues are the emotional absence, the inconsistency and broken trust. Because let's say, for instance, we do have an appointment to have a chat at 10 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday, and that parent who's overseas, something else happens and they're not there. And then the child's a little bit disappointed. But then next time we have to plan for it. Now you find the child maybe being a little defensive and saying, no, I have something else to do. Because now they're avoiding feeling that trust that's broken. And we have to constantly be really intentional in building when we are not home. I mean, we have to do this even when we are home. You get home and then in a day your child comes home and you can see their body language is not the same. Now you can imagine if you're not physically there, you're looking out for things like tone, you're looking out for consistency. There's things that you have to be so much more in tune with so that you constantly like following the different development stages that your child is going to go through and what they need from you as well.
Yeah. Before we go to some calls and some WhatsApps, here's a big one. When you are being parented from a distance because of a divorce that's taken place, or maybe no divorce because maybe your parents were not married, but your mom gets married into a new family or your dad, and now here you are left with granny. And the problem really is that mommy wouldn't have taken us with her, or daddy wouldn't have taken us with him into his new family. that hits really hard.
Yeah.
From the calls I've received before on the show when we talk about issues like this. Do you think that's probably the most impactful? Because, I mean, children can sort of still get it if, okay, you're there because you're working.
Yeah.
You're in another province or another country. But if you are there living your life with your new children and your new family, and I'm there with granny, that would be really hurtful.
So that stings differently. I think a lot of us have the experience. I think understanding the difference between the abandonment. If you have moved on with your life and you have another family, you must never think that your children don't need you anymore. They probably need you even more because they're going to have so much more challenges, and they are, as I mentioned earlier, they are watching all these other children getting fetched by their dads running around in the field, and maybe even thinking about some of the memories that they've had in the past that they no longer have. So it's really important that we understand that distance must not translate to abandonment. So you can be physically unavailable, but that relationship, that emotional stuff must still happen. And I think, in South Africa, I feel like a lot of people have become comfortable with being ATM fathers.
Yeah.
And something that we need to frown upon so much, because the role of a father in terms of just being the disciplinarian, being the person who's like cheering your child on, is so important.
Yeah.
In the long run, when you're no longer there, the words that we're saying to our children are so important in their unconscious. They're going to be hearing us and they need us. So yes, things don't work out with our partners, but with our children, we need to constantly invest to say, how do we fight for them? How do we make sure that they know that they are worthy? Remember what I said earlier. Once we are gone in those situations, they blame themselves. They don't think that mommy didn't work out because dad this, mom that, is their thing. They're like,
I'm the problem.
I came into the picture and they separated. I did something wrong. And that affects them in the long run in terms of their self-worth, their identity. So we want to make sure that we move away from that.
How do you navigate it though? Because I've seen a case of a woman who's got 2 kids, who just got married to this man, and this man says, I just want us to start our family, our own family. I don't want you to bring those kids here. We can support them from a distance, but this is our family. And the woman then takes a decision to say to their younger sister, please take care of the kids for me. And I'm glad you brought in the issue of abandonment, because that to me sounds like abandonment.
Yeah.
Because you're choosing this new era of your life which doesn't accommodate your children.
Yeah.
And you are okay with that.
Yeah. So now we're going to the relationships. We need another conversation for that one. So the dynamics of how I get into a relationship with a new partner and whatever baggages I might be carrying, whatever I'm trying to prove now, sometimes puts us as women in situations where we neglect some of these things. Because maybe my partner is abusive, maybe there was a lot of things happening, but now I want to prove, all of these things. And in some of these instances, we do compromise ourselves when we choose these partners because we have all these little things we want to checklist. But it's just so important that as we are getting into relationships, when you're choosing a partner, and I always talk about this, let's get to know each other first before we commit to making babies, before we commit to the marriage, so that we know that are we compatible. And I know it's hard, you meet someone, you're excited, the butterflies.
That's the love of your life. And you're thinking, am I going to miss this chance because of these 2 little girls or 2 little boys? But still, I mean, if those are your children, those are your kids, you appreciate, you love, at the very least, be with someone who's able to consider them.
Yeah, I think for me, the cost to the kids in terms of just abandonment, feeling like, but why mom, the anger, the resentment is too high for me to put myself in that. But I always want to say I understand and I have empathy for women who are in those situations, because we never know the dynamics that get them there.
Yeah.
But I think what's important maybe in just a lesson towards this is, if you're starting a new relationship, let's put in a lot more effort into getting to know our partners first, getting to understand their characters. Because equally, let's be realistic, Clement, you know that you bring a partner into your home and then they're abusing your children as well. For me, that's another thing that's also just as scary and probably more traumatizing. Because, as mothers, and we're trying to start our blended families, if you have a daughter, if you have a son for that matter, you have to be thinking about them being a role model to your child, your children's safety, all of those things. So yeah, we'd have to have that conversation on a different.
That's a completely another one, but it's such a big one that ends up leaving children feeling abandoned, feeling like they're the problem.
Yeah.
I want to take your calls now on 011-883-0702, WhatsApp's on 072-702-1702. Have you experienced long distance parenting, and was it because of divorce? Was it because of employment opportunities? What was it? Was it the rising cost of living and you were asked to go stay with another family? What were the circumstances for you, and how did that affect you? Kamogelo, you're calling from Pretoria. Good morning.
Hi, Clement and guest. Up until I was older, I realized that I do not have a memory of my mom after the divorce. Because I only have a memory of my grandmother while she raised us. But after the divorce, there's zero memory. And the other thing is that, especially with being children, you've been fed lies saying that, no, my father would have said that, no, you came to Granny because I'm going to be working far. And then I'm only going to come see you once in a while. And in that instance as well, my mother not being available to us as well as dealing with the part of the divorce. Only when I was older I realized I have no memory of my mother up until my grandmother passed. Then that's where I have the memory of my mother from. And Clement, the other thing, I think 3 weeks ago you just mentioned now with you had a guest, Anonymous, on another segment when he said that he proposed a lady for a marriage, but this lady has a child and he does not want anything to do with the child, but he still wants to marry the lady. How will the child feel if they will be separated from their mother at perhaps six years old, and the mother will be married to this other guy, but the child will be left with their grandparents because this guy who wants to marry the mother does not want to anything to do with the child. It's hurting,
Yeah, and the reality here is that if you are dating as a parent, that is a different ball game for you. You can't date as if you're single. I mean, when you're a parent, you're a parent. Kamohelo, thank you for your call. And when you're a parent, you need to think about the kids. You need to also, in some way, prioritize the kids. So if you're going to be with someone who says, don't bring your kids into the household,
run.
What are you doing with someone? What are you doing with someone like that?
Run for the hills.
Run for the hills. More of your calls and your WhatsApps after the latest in Eyewitness News headlines. Keep sharing your own experiences of long-distance parenting. Maybe you were raised by parents who worked overseas, parents who were divorced, parents that you saw maybe every weekend. How did that affect your relationship with them, if at all? Or maybe you are that parent, or you were that parent. How did that play into the dynamics of the family? It's 11:31. Maki, good morning.
Thanks, Clement. Good morning. The Madlanga Commission of Inquiry says it will no longer tolerate witnesses conveniently falling ill just before they are due to appear before it. This comes after controversial Northwest businessman Brown Mogodzi failed to appear today, citing illness without producing a medical certificate. Mogodzi became the 5th witness to have his hearing postponed due to illness. The Madlanga Commission is racing against time to complete its work, with its deadline set for the 17th of March. The testimony of former National Director of Public Prosecutions, Bulelani Ngcuka, was delayed this morning after his legal team objected to an application to cross-examine him before the TRC Cases Commission of Inquiry. The chairperson had earlier authorized the application brought by attorneys for the Galata family and 24 other families under the Commission's rules. However, Ngcuka's counsel requested that the directive be reconsidered. And the Iranian Embassy in South Africa is in mourning following the assassination of the country's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. Khamenei was killed in Israeli and American airstrikes over the weekend, sparking retaliatory attacks from Tehran. Those are the headlines. This Eyewitness News and more at midday or as it happens.
EWN Traffic.
Well, most of the delays that were reported in the city of Tshwane have cleared. Traffic is now flowing, but if you are traveling along the N12 East in the Benoni area, do expect delays towards Atlas Road. An accident seen there. Delays coming out of the R21. There's also queuing traffic reported on the M2 West. This is between the Crown Interchange and Main Reef Road. That's due to roadworks that are taking place along that route. There's also queuing traffic along the N1 South coming out of the N12 exit. This is just as you head towards the Zakaria Park area. More updates coming up at the top of the hour. Stay tuned.
There's more EWN on air, online, and on the EWN app.
Bongani Bingwa, 702 Breakfast.
Weekday mornings, 6 to 9.
Big news out of Iran. The supreme leader, the Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, 86 years old, confirmed dead on Saturday following joint U.S. and Israeli strikes. Iran, of course, has retaliated, attacking many Gulf nations, including Bahrain, Qatar, the UAE.
We are actually right at the beginning of the conflict now. The closing down of the Strait of Hormuz will really result in serious consequences. It's projected that 18 billion barrels of oil could be affected if the Strait of Hormuz is shut down. We're not even talking about the Bab al-Mandab Strait. So we are in serious trouble.
Dr. Kingsley Makubela.
Bongani Bingwa, 6 to 9.
On 702.
This is a message from Johannesburg Water. Water infrastructure vandalism has tragic, dangerous consequences. The theft of manhole covers can result in fatalities, especially among children. Each damaged pipe, illegal hookup, or vandalized pump jeopardizes access to clean water, disrupts service, and threatens public safety. Report suspicious activity to the City of Johannesburg at 0800 002 587. Help combat water infrastructure vandalism. Your alertness can prevent disasters.
Okay, truck 7, that has zero warning lights. Truck 8, it's just been serviced. I guess we're running like a well-oiled machine. Where would I be without MyWay's comprehensive cover for my vans and trucks? Plus, cover for my customers' orders with goods and transit insurance. I guess we'll never know.
Visit myway.co.za or dial 0860 64 64 64 and get a quote today. MyWay is a licensed non-life insurer and FSP. T's, C's and standard rates apply. MyWay. Live your way.
Business and government are working together to tackle youth unemployment. Discover how with insights from Shami Suriana Rain.
Some of the barriers that employers face include young people not necessarily being able to advertise the skills that they actually have that are relevant for a job. For example, job postings will ask for things like 5 years of work experience for an entry-level job. And we know that actually only 5% of jobs that are online can require less than a matric certificate, where we know from Harambe's own proof points that people with less than a matric or a matric can do many entry-level jobs. So there's a question of demand and supply mismatch. SA Youth simplifies this with a number of inclusive assessments like our behavioral screener and other tools like the inclusive CV. And this, we've actually conducted tests to show that this puts more young people that are ready and fit for purpose in front of them.
These insights on building South Africa's workforce are brought to you by SA Youth on 702.
702.
Family Matters.
It's 24 minutes before 12 o'clock. On our Family Matters feature this morning, we're in conversation with Ayanda Tetiana, who is a parenting coach and author, and we're talking about long-distance parenting. How do you navigate parenthood from afar? There are different circumstances where you see children being parented from a distance, whether due to divorce, whether due to employment opportunities, migration, or maybe it's just expensive to raise them, perhaps where you work, and that's why you've sent them back home to be with your parents. But there are many parents who find themselves raising children from another province, from another country, or even another continent. And for some, that's temporary, but for others, it's quite a long-term reality. How does that affect the relationship between you as parents and the children themselves? So between you as children and the parents. Let's start with your WhatsApps on 072 702 1702.
Hey, Clem, and your guest. Thank you for this great topic. You just got me thinking. I spent a year, all of last year, away from my family and my children. And in hindsight, one of the things I'm very grateful for in terms of maintaining connection with the family is how deliberate the other parent was in scheduling the time that was designated for me to call and catch up with the kids. And you take it for granted, but it's very easy for like 2 days to pass because this person was busy or nobody answered the phone. But just to have the mindfulness, if you're the parent who stays behind, to help facilitate that, it's a massive thing. It was huge for me. I was 7 hours behind in terms of time zone. So even that disconnect of like it's nighttime for me when it's morning for them, and being deliberate about thinking about what's appropriate to speak about when their day is only starting and mine is ending. Very tough, but I encourage parents who are doing it and are considering it. It's not impossible, but it is a huge undertaking and requires all hands on deck. Thank you.
Yeah, no, that's really important advice. It's what you spoke about earlier, and just be intentional about like, okay, we are talking at this time, and you meet some of those commitments. So, I mean, there will, of course, happen. There'll be moments where you miss the call, or because it's worse when the time zones are far ahead or behind. Because that's tough. When your morning begins, they're going to bed.
Yeah.
When they go to bed.
Yeah.
So that can
and
really
you have a
be
whole
tricky.
lot happening in between, so you're trying to really manage.
Yeah. So sometimes, of course, the distant parent can be the one that is more of a fun parent. So how do you ensure that there's no strict parent versus like fun parent dynamic?
So I think you have to, just bear in mind, the dynamics of parenting. So I always talk about how, when it comes to parenting, we're always wearing different hats at different times. And I'm saying this to say some of the dads, you come home, the children run away to their rooms.
Yeah.
So even in that regard, you want to always be aware that when you're building relationships with your children and you want to be a person of influence to them, you have to be likable, right?
Yeah.
So have warmth, understand that you are going to be always talking about boundaries. You want to be clear about whatever you expect in terms of whatever their duties are, roles, and be consistent, but like play a little with the children even. So depending on how you put together, let's say, for instance, your schedule of how do you make up time. There's so much you can do, Say, for instance, depending on the children. So you'll have different kids and they'll have different interests. You could have, morning prayer, rituals that you have. You could have jokes. You could have poetry if your child is into that. Maybe some interesting philosophy or whatever. Take pictures that you send to each other often. Just tell them, hey, I saw some street called whatever in wherever country. Just keep that connection going. Keep the conversations happening, whether it's your bedtime a prayer thing, like songs that you have together, reading time, depending on the ages, and just talk about everything, boys, girls, what's happening at school. And I think what really helps with things like connection for our children specifically is being able to remember what they said. So say they talked about this boy, or they talked about that teacher being mean, being able to say, hey, so how's that relationship going with that teacher you mentioned the other time?
Yeah.
It actually makes them feel like that connection is there because you are listening and you remembered what they said to you.
Yeah. Do you think there are fathers who take pride in them arriving and kids like tremble and like they run to the room?
So I'll be honest with this one. Obviously, because of the work I do, I understand that it comes from a place of how were you parented. So nobody goes out and sets out to be like that. And in many instances, not even conscious. That's the actual kind of parents
Some don't even realize it.
No. So I run a program called a Parenting Mirror, and I would do like workshops on a weekly basis where I actually help parents think about where do they have some of their parenting habits, their parenting ideas. Where do they come from? And looking at your actual children, are they actually connecting with those? And you may find that one child responds well to how you shout and whatnot, but the other child might have anxiety and find themselves not happy with that situation. As parents, we have to be very responsive to our children, and it requires us to wear these different hats. So I always urge parents to say, let's go do some deep work in terms of how we parent. Can you imagine it's hard enough and you're already at home in that kind of situation? Imagine if you're not at home and you're the strict parent and your children are scared to even tell you, I tore my shirt because I was running or I was playing in the playground. That's part of the relationship stuff that's really makes for the magical moments.
Yeah.
So we have to work on ourselves to make sure that we are able to reach our children. We are able to wear different hats with them. I know a lot of people will say, hey, I don't want to be friends with my children. Your children are going to get to the point where they're going to be so grown, but they will not want to talk to you outside this authority that you've created. So it's important to know when to put down boundaries. And when
in fact, the authority fizzles out at some point.
Oh, yes.
And I think parents sometimes are not prepared for the moment when you stand your ground.
Yeah.
I've seen it with my parents.
Yeah.
More so my mom, when if I don't want to come home for Christmas this year, it's my decision.
Yeah.
Maybe I want to spend it with my family, or maybe I want to go with my friends somewhere. But I'm an adult. I can take that decision. And sometimes they struggle with that because in their minds they're like, but I'm the one who gives authority here, you know.
And bear in mind that our children are more aware of their own boundaries and their vocabulary in terms of emotional stuff.
Yeah.
So now they're going to tell you way earlier that I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
I'm not interested.
Yeah.
It's going to hurt. But it requires the responsive part in knowing your children to understand, Guti, this child may not necessarily be rude, but their personality does not necessarily align with whatever. You know, one of the hardest things I've had to deal with in my parenting, I have an 18-year-old, and since he was about 14, he refused to take pictures that I will post because of the kind of work I do and all of that.
Yeah.
And because I had been teaching him about consent all over his life, I was forced to practice.
Yes.
That is the hardest thing to say.
No.
I've been preaching consent to you, especially because it's a boy child.
Yeah.
But how do I actually model that?
Yeah.
I have to actually...
Yeah.
And if I take pictures of him, I take his hands or his back or whatever. I don't post his pictures at all. But I'm trying to model something that I've said to him is very important.
Yeah.
And this is the responsiveness. I'm unhappy with his ideas, but I have to listen and I have to take my step back.
And respect the choices made.
And it's always about me anyway. That's wanting to take his pictures. So that's the deep work that you need to do as parents. And that's what my parenting survey and my program, Parenting Mirror, does. It helps you think about those little things.
Yeah. It was really a mirror on you. I told him about consent and now he's telling me that he doesn't want the pictures to be posted. I must respect that. Here's another message on the WhatsApp line from, I think, also Anonymous, who says, Hi, Clement. I had a child during my 3rd year at university, and she has since been staying with my mom from 2 weeks old. She's now 11 years old. She's the first grandchild and has been the only grandchild for 10 years. My mother, who's 72 years old, was clear that when I decide to move out, I should leave her daughter behind. I visit her almost every week. I do activities with her, and we talk to her regularly. But I sometimes feel like I lost my responsibility as a parent. Somehow I also feel like it would break my mother's heart to take her away. So another dynamic is that my mother is old school and does things her ancient ways, which at times doesn't make me happy. Indeed, we overcompensate, but it's hard to strike a balance. Nonetheless, I appreciate the role she plays in my daughter's life. Now, the first part here, the first dynamic that I picked up when I was reading this was sometimes there are children who feel sorry for their mothers or for their parents. So when you've got a child and your mom or dad is so excited and they want the child to stay with them, then you feel some form of guilt for taking away your own child to raise them in your own household. Because it feels like Anonymous was feeling guilty because mom said, no, don't. This is my first grandchild.
So that's another tricky one because, you know, within the cultural situations that we have to deal with, there's that. There's also understanding, Guti, if you're not in a situation, obviously, where you can financially take care of children, temporarily, it's okay to ask for that help. But I always say that it's always better that when you are in a position when you can, you try to do that so that the child can start being more physically involved with you and more emotionally involved with you. You're going to be able to support them more with the dynamics that we have today. I mean, think about how much work is done at school nowadays with AI, for instance. I can almost bet that Granny doesn't really know a lot about that. But also, I'll bring up another topic in terms of just this context. In many instances, as we parent, we make our children our whole lives. And then when our children leave, we don't know what to do with ourselves. So, I know that in a lot of communities, there might not be a lot of resources for our grandparents to do things. But being involved in terms of community things, traditionally before, what we would be doing is we'd be raising our children in a community. So you'd have all of this. But once we have a little bit of distance that we move away, you don't necessarily have that. So this one's a tricky one that you have to navigate with your parent. I think it depends on the context, but sometimes I always encourage parents, once you are in a position where you can afford to take care of the children and you're no longer a student, it's always good to take care of your own child, because the values that you're going to impart are much more relevant to the time that we're living in. And find Granny a hobby or something.
Yeah. How do you negotiate the parenting styles? Because that's what Anonymous is also raising, that she picked up that her mother was raising the grandchild, her daughter, in ancient ways, which at times made her unhappy. But that's the thing: if the child is in my house, these are the rules of the house.
Yeah. If you wish there could be as much alignment as possible, but that's not always going to be the reality. So just basic things like how much screen time the child has, routines, diet. There's so much authority you can have when you're not physically the one who's actually the primary caregiver. And even with values, let's say, for instance, I'm a little bit more, atheist, but grandmother is more church every other weekend. These are the things that you have to choose your battles, I think.
Yeah. All right, it's 11 minutes before 12 o'clock. We're going to continue this conversation after the break. Keep your calls and WhatsApps coming.
Aubrey Masango.
Weekday evenings,
8 to midnight.
What do you make of the damning report by the Special Investigation Unit?
It's something that we've all known, that the Home Affairs Department is corrupt. It's got a lot of corrupt officials. There's a branch in Umbilo and there's another one at Tenga. We know there's definitely more than 4 officials that are creating problems there. Yeah. Money has ruined this country. We have worshipped money more than we worship the wellness and well-being and survival of this country.
Jacinta Ngobese Zuma, leader of March and March.
Aubrey Masango.
8 to midnight on 702.
702.
Start the year with We Buy Cars. Selling your vehicle, they will come to you, handle everything and pay you instantly. Simply visit webuycars.co.za and complete the form to discover what they'll offer you. Need a new ride for the new year? Well, browse thousands of options online or at any We Buy Cars branch nationally. We Buy Cars. Buy or sell the simplest way.
It's your last chance to save with the Checkers Extravaganza. Save extra on deals like Jacob's Kroonenor Gold Instant Coffee, 200 or 230 grams. Any 2 for 299 Rand. Save 110 Rand. Yum Yum Peanut Butter, 800 grams for 69.99. And Comfort Fabric Conditioner Bottle, 800 mils. Buy any 2 and get a third free. Valid until 8 March. Only at Checkers, Checkers Hyper, or shop on 6060.
Show.
Weekday evenings at 6.
The number of used cars being sold is also up dramatically. Actually, used car sales are up 11% in January year on year. George Meany is the CEO at Auto Trader SA.
Approximately 1.5 to 2 times the number of used cars are traded versus new. And that fluctuates anywhere between 1.5 and 2.5 depending on where the economy is. But the used car market is a lot more buoyant and there's a lot more vehicles traded in the used car market than there are in the new car market.
The Money Show
on 702. Let's walk the talk.
The Money Show with Stephen Grootes is brought to you by Absa Corporate and Investment Banking. Refined performance is a measure of discipline. That's how we are invested in your story and why Absa returned as a proud diamond sponsor for this year's Hedge News Africa Symposium and Awards Ceremony. Absa is a registered FSP. T's and C's apply.
702.
Family Matters.
It's 8 minutes before 12 o'clock. We're just about to wrap up our conversation about long-distance parenting with Ayanda, who is a parenting coach and author. And Ayanda, let's just now look at the strategies for some parents who are in this situation. What are some of the tips you have for them? How can they navigate these dynamics?
Inconsistent. I think it's more important than frequency, and also just bearing in mind your child's individual needs. You want to be as responsive. If your child is into depending on the age they're at, makeup, whatever they're doing, even if you may not necessarily be something that you enjoy, buy makeup sets for both of you, have a morning on a Saturday and try and do the things, and while you're doing that, you're going to laugh, you're going to make mistakes, you can have meal days where you all have the same meals, watch movies together. There's so much we can do, but we have to think out of the box. But most importantly for me is your individual children won't want the same thing. So now the intentionality comes from understanding, okay, this is what will make sense. And maybe you can have a chat with them and say, hey, I want to get to bond with you more. I want to have a little bit more fun with you. What can we do together? There's games you can play online as well. But I want to say, try to do as much as you can that is more what the child wants than what I want as the mom or the dad, because then that's how our children will feel like we're actually right there, part of their lives and their growth.
Yeah. Well, what if because there are some parents who will argue, oh, I'm more of a disciplinarian, I'm not a fun parent, or fun parents who will say, I'm more of a fun parent, but I'm not the one that's going to go hard on the kids.
Yeah.
How do they balance these roles out? Because you can't just be a fun parent, and you can't also just be a disciplinarian parent.
Yeah,
there must be a balance of sorts.
See, this one is tricky, and that's why I actually got into the parenting mirror work, because I had so many people asking me these questions, and I'll be like, okay, why are you struggling to discipline your child if they've done something wrong? Hi, I'm like this, I'm scared, they won't like me. And then I realized that there's a lot happening in this whole parenting stuff. So we have to understand our own parenting styles, understand where does that come from. Say, for instance, you're the parent who's scared to tell your children they're wrong. Chances are there was a lot that was happening in your childhood, and when your parents did it, you felt a certain way about it. And now you're scared to be like your parents because maybe they were always disciplining you. So you want to always obviously have a balance. And I think the best way to do that is also just listen. If for instance, you're the parent who these children are really scared of, you'll see their body language. See how they try and come into the house without them hearing the car and the garage and everything, and then see 5 minutes after they've seen the show home, everyone then runs away. And then also, if you're too much of a fun parent and you don't discipline and you don't put boundaries, that is also an inconvenience to your children, because they're going to go out into the world, the classroom, everywhere, there are rules. And if you're not teaching them how to obey rules, you're also disadvantaging them. Because then they're going to expect everyone else in the world not to have rules and everyone to be fun. And that's actually going to make it harder for them.
Yeah. Parenting is so hard. It just seems to be so hard. And nobody goes to school before they become a parent.
No.
Which is why people like you are so important.
Right. I always say that if we were to be honest and really put some forms to say, am I fit to be a parent before we actually, I think half of us, more than half. But for me, what's important is as you have, because obviously that's not the reality, right? As you are now blessed with that responsibility. Think about parenting in that you're not just parenting for your little benefits, your dopamine of I'm doing this and this and this and this for my children. Have a bigger picture in mind to say this child will be somebody's girlfriend, somebody's husband, somebody's mother, somebody's father. And how do I train them and prepare my home environment so that they are prepared for that? And that requires so much more, Yes, we may have grown up in situations where we're like, our children are not going to do any chores. But are you really helping them if you're not training them with all of those type of little responsibilities? Because those little things are so important. It also helps them gain confidence. They know they can wash dishes. They know they can do all these little things. So, it requires a lot of deep work. And I want anyone who's listening who'd like to try out my parenting survey to go to my social media. On Facebook, it's Aya the Parent Coach.
Aya the Parent Coach.
And then on Instagram, it's Aya the Parent Coach as well. And then just say Parenting Mirror. I'll send the survey. And then when I have my workshops, I'll send that to you as well. And you're going to find it very exciting because there's some questions you're going to ask yourself. You're going to be like, oh my gosh, the reason I shouted at them is because I was worried what other people will say. And then you really need to think about, okay, why do I care?
Sure, so confronting. I'm looking forward to it. So go check out Aya the Parent Coach on Facebook and on Instagram as well, and just ask for this parenting mirror. I think it will be fascinating. Ayanda, thank you so much for coming through. Always appreciate your insights and advice for our listeners. I really appreciate it.
My absolute pleasure.
Ayanda Tatiana is a parenting coach and author.
Different sounds, different worlds.
Different artistic expressions, music, art, and fashion collide. Are you coming? Let's go to the place where the beat drops, the fashion pops, and the art rocks.
We're talking Focalistic, Daliwonga, Mafigi Zolo, Kurt Darren, Makara Doughboy, Zoe Mujicha, Claire Johnston from Mango Groove, the Tswani Gospel Choir, and more. Mahindra Fusion Fest, Saturday 7th March, Sunbet Arena. Tickets on Ticketmaster now. See you there.
On Friday, the 13th of March, the Grateful Hearts Foundation invites you to celebrate motherhood, love, and legacy at Pilu, a mother's love, a powerful evening of art and food and wine in Rosebank, hosted at Aspire Art and the Atrium at Keys Art Mile. Experience works by Sam Mhlengetwa, Zizi Poposwa, and Boemo Diale and more. Enjoy a harvest table by Lady Day, fine wine, and an intimate artist panel. All proceeds support pediatric cardiac care through Nelson Mandela Children's Hospital. Get your tickets today on Howler.
Coming up
on the Midday Report.
How are you doing, Jane? Good morning.
Good morning to you.
What's happening today?
The war in the Middle East is spreading fast. We've just heard that Israel is going to be calling up another 100,000 soldiers. We're going to find out about South Africans that have been caught in Dubai, in particular, what it is that they're going through, how frightened they are. I've been talking to some of my former colleagues at Al Jazeera, and the bombs are just going off. They said it's almost like being in Lebanon now. Everyone's a bit like meh. But the thing is, it's not a meh situation. It's incredibly dangerous. We've heard about strikes on Cyprus as well. Donald Trump saying that this war is going to last for at least another 4 weeks. Paul O'Sullivan is going to be back on Thursday. Ramaphosa, he didn't rock up today.
Yeah, some are rocking up, some planning their appearances. That's Jane Dutton coming up on the Midday Report. Thanks for listening to the show. We're back again tomorrow between 9 and 12. Have a beautiful day, my friends. Bye-bye.
This is EWN.
Good afternoon, I'm Mikey Malapo. The Madlanga Commission of Inquiry says it will no longer tolerate witnesses conveniently falling ill just before they are due to appear before it. This comes after controversial Northwest businessman Brown Mokhodzi failed to appear today, citing illness without producing a medical certificate.